Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have another Infinity N5 initial reaction, this time with TAK. I've messed around a little bit with TAK, but don't have a huge amount of experience. So today we have another special guest. Welcome to the channel, Val.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me. I look forward to speaking all things tax.
So, Val, you've got a bit of experience with TAK, and a bit of experience podcasting as well.
Yes, yes. I think I was part of the Lost Lieutenant crew for a little while there. I think they've deleted that part of their catalog, but that's fine. That's for them. And yeah, I've been playing TAC for about a year and a half or nearly 2 years, and I've really enjoyed them. So I think I have something to add.
Yeah, very good. Should be a lot of fun. What do you think initially drew you to TAK as a faction?
Well, I've been playing Infinity for many years, and the main thing that drew me was the type of factions I played pre-TAC. So
Hmm.
I played Imperial Service, I played Morats, and then so both of those factions had very limited access to camouflage, mimetism, infiltration. So TAC seemed like a perfect progression to explore another aspect of the game mechanics and engine. So that was the decision making.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, Tax. I feel like it's one of the Ariadne factions that gets a lot of new players end up there if they don't end up going to Cosmo. I think the very kind of modern military aesthetic. A lot of people also like that as well. So plenty to like about TAC.
Yeah, absolutely. And they get some, yeah, like the vet Kazak's going to be one of the coolest models in the game. And if anyone's played Metro, the video game, like, yeah,
Mm.
there's a lot of things. And they get, and the other thing is, from a hobby point of view, like, a lot of the Infinity range that you paint are very much sci-fi armor plates, guns, cloaks. In TAC, you do get access to painting an Ariadna. You get access to painting wolves, something a little bit more on the fantasy side of things, even though it's set in that sci-fi setting. So that's nice as well.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, let's take a bit of a look at Tartary Army Corps, also known as TAC. So in terms of defining TAC, you can start the game with a really incredible amount of camo markers on the field. You've got high quality mimetic long range gunfighters and pretty high quality impetuous units and units with smoke. What specific units do you think of, or how do you see these strengths manifesting on the table?
Yeah. So the first point with camo, you really have access to an insane amount of camo, and that's boosted by the, I guess, abundance of the decoy skill. So
Mm.
a lot of the camo units have the decoy, so you are able to play a bit of a shell game, or at the very minimum, put down a lot of camo markers when you start the game. So that's to that first point. In
Mm.
terms of long range mimetic gunfighters, most of your camo markers have um, mimetism, and there's a lot of units just in general that have mimetism in the faction. And there's a big amount of sniper rifles and portable autocannons and missile. Well, not a lot of missiles, but there is missile launchers in the faction as well. So you do have that long range capability, which can be added to your list quite easily.
Mm.
And even the Hotniks and the Urgans have zero range bands after 32. So there is a lot of opportunity for having an advantage at that outside 32 range band in the faction.
Mm. Yeah, it's pretty
Um,
interesting. Going to an Ariadne faction. Which you generally consider low technology, potentially not great at shooting, but TAC really seems to buck that trend.
they, well, in terms of raw stat lines, they're generally 13s and 12s in
Mm.
terms of BS. So you need the range bands and the mimetism to get your advantage
Mm.
to win the gunfight. Because that's when the odds, that's when the I guess all the bonuses or the penalties really start stacking. So as soon as like anything in Infinity, anyone who's played it long enough, as soon as you've got somebody in their bad range bands and in your good ones, you're doing quite well.
Mm.
Your odds of winning the fight are quite good. Added to that, a bit of mimetism, and it really can go a long way. But that's easier said than done. course,
Mm.
because the tables are 48 inches and the things generally you're engaging with that are an arrow are usually good up to 32. So it doesn't give you a lot of room to kind of get that perfect shot. But with time and practice, you can get those
Mm.
to happen. And should I go on to the third point
Yeah,
of the smoke?
absolutely.
Yeah, so with smoke, the smoke, that's the other thing of the faction. I think it's got so much smoke. Ermendinos being the very obvious one because they pack so much into one profile. They
Mm.
give you smoke, they give you deactivator now, which is more important than ever. They give you a specialist, and they give you an engineer profile, which we'll come to a bit later, where I think it's pretty important. Not to mention the dynamos, who can now be duoed quite easily and give you quite reliable smoke with the smoke grenade launchers with the special dice,
Mm.
and obviously the dog warrior as well, who are throwing out smoke on 14s or 16s, depending where they are in life.
Yeah, I mean that's the reliability of smoke has changed a lot from N4 to N5. So to have that burst 2 smoke grenade launcher or chucking that
Mm.
smoke on 16, realistically that's some of the more reliable smoke in the game as we have it now.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess the other point to make as well is having reliable smoke is one thing. So, but having like one unit with reliable smoke is one thing.
Hmm.
But as you play Infinity, if you misdeploy that unit or if you need smoke on the other side of the table, it's all well and good having reliable smoke, but it's quite it can be cumbersome and order intensive to get that smoke to where you want it. With TAC, it's so easy to have smoke across your list that you can have smoke across the table. So left, you have two Armadillos on either flank, and then a dog warrior up the middle, or vice, or in that combination, and
Mm.
you've got smoke coverage quite well across your, I guess, your DZ or across the board, which makes it a lot easier to kind of play the game or use smoke when you need to, or have be able to reach for the smoke when you need it. And like for example, in that example, that would cost you what? That would cost you 42 points if
Not
my maths
bad.
is to be trusted
Yeah.
with Hermedinians and Dog Warrior. Like, like, yeah, it's pretty good, pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. And we've talked a bit about, how good the camo is, but what do you view as sort of the use and the strengths of camo? If you're playing with camo, what benefits are you reaping from that?
Um, Again, so in the active turn, so camo's a really interesting skill in Infinity. Basically, smoke and camo do a similar thing where it is, I guess, vision impairment to your opponent.
Mm.
So it allows you to act without your opponent being able to do too much about it, which is a powerful thing in Infinity in general. In the active turn with camouflage, you can choose to avoid fights. So you can choose to avoid the fight if you want to, and you can progress up the table without having to engage in the classical gunfight. Um, in the reactive turn, camouflage works in a similar way, where it gives you control again, where you pick whether you engage in the ARO, which is very
Mm.
rare in Infinity, because in Infinity, if you have something on ARO, the active player chooses if they want to engage with it. Whilst if you're in a camo state, you as the reactive player kind of get to choose, unless of course they discover and shoot you. But that's one, not guaranteed, and
Mm.
two, uh, order intensive for the opponent. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think that's a pretty interesting thing to have across the board in your faction.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. But there are some weaknesses for TAC as well. We've
Yes.
got that they
Yeah.
struggle a bit against mimetism. And also, we didn't get this down, but visors as well seem like a bit of a struggle. The list can tend towards fragility, and you're not really in the info war game.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So on that first point, the irony is the fact that you've got all the mimetism in the world, but as soon as they have mimetism, it's a real challenge for you. The access to MSV visors is limited to one profile, which is the
Mm.
Frontovik MSV1 sniper. So um, that is one, a low burst weapon, a sniper rifle with limited range bands.
Mm.
So it's not it's not a troop that wants to push up the table unless you switch to assault pistol. But so they can do a dual role, but it's a real like two, I guess,
Two very
two
polarized
exa-
positions.
exactly right. Yeah, so you're trying to put away your sniper and then run up the table with an assault pistol. It's like
Mm.
it's a lot of orders to kind of get into those positions. The the way they deal with mimetism is templates, see close combat, and weight of dice,
Mm.
which you can get around it, but it is mimetism is definitely challenging.
Mm.
Um, with fragility, everything's one wound except the vet Kazak, and your doctors that you have access to you are mid. Like you get a Kazakh
Yeah,
doctor,
they're
a
perfectly
couple
fine.
paramedics. Yeah, like they're fine, but you don't have cubes,
Mm.
and the Kazakh doctor is the doctor profile isn't on somewhere where you're going to take it outside of like being part of a link. It's not something. It's not on a troop that's going to be pushed up the board in a useful position.
Mm.
So yeah, it's not it's not the most reliable thing to be healing your troops. Your with with your doctors.
Mm. Yeah, it's
Having said that,
yeah.
though, I'll just sorry. Having said that, though, you do have the paramedic Dynamo, which is useful for getting your antipodes and your dog warriors back to fight because they have such high feels.
Mm. Yeah, I've enjoyed similar with the Montesa paramedic. Just a very fast doctor to get those high fizz units up. But it
Yeah.
is very important to remember, like you said, you don't have cubes. So the line
Mm-hmm.
between doctor and paramedic isn't really an incredible amount. And it is, most doctors, your whip 13, that's a 65% chance. You know, you've got a decent chance of killing your units just a fair amount of the time, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, it really is. And one of your main pieces that go into your link team for your ARO is the Frontovik, and they don't have
Mm.
shock immune. So when they go down, if it's with a shock, if it's from a shock round, they delete it. So having a doctor there isn't necessarily gonna matter, or as in that there is a way that opponent
Mm.
can play it where your doctor's not gonna have a chance to do anything.
Yeah, definitely.
And finally, the info war. This applies for all of Ariadna, generally speaking. Um, this is a double-edged sword, to be honest. Like, I've just started playing Tunguska recently, and I must say the info war is powerful, but it's also a liability in
Mm.
some ways because um, the fact that you're vulnerable to it. You have to kind of lean into it a little bit to protect yourself.
Mm.
Whilst with Ariadna or TAK, you don't really have to even think about it, so you can kind of ignore it in a way. So in one way, you can't shut down tags and heavy infantry. You kind of have to fight them more or the honest way, but at the same time, you don't have to even think about it in your list building. So it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, I mean the Infowar game sort of feels like a game of chicken with your opponent of how much is each player willing to invest in Infowar to need to
Yes.
win the Infowar. It's very interesting
Yeah.
from a list building perspective. But I think what also hurts not being in the Infowar game is just that the with the missions, most of them have a hacker bonus, uh, which I think's one of the more impactful effects of not being in the Infowar game.
Yeah, you're with Ariadne. I think you're I guess compensated for that
Mm.
in the way of how efficient your specialists are. So even though their enemy might have hackers who get the two dice and the bonus, they might not have the infiltration and camouflage to get them there in like one order. They have to maybe spend two or three orders to get there. So I think it comes out in the wash for me.
Mm.
In terms of scenario play, the only time it comes up is with classified cards. It can be a bit tricky, but again, you are so efficient at doing your classifieds with Ariadne and TAK, in my opinion, that I think it comes out in the wash a little bit as well.
Very cool. Well, do you want to walk us through the sort of history of TAC and N4?
So, in the main thing the attack got in N5 from N4 to N5 is the improvement to the Ratnik the addition of 3 units, which is the Barsuks, the conductor, and the Vistal. I think, and the electronic. The electronic's really big as
Mm.
well. So those 4 units being added have kind of added a lot to the faction. There's obviously a lot of stat changes throughout as well, or like profile adjustments a little bit as well. But in N4, yeah, TAC played similar to the way they do now, but the addition of the Barsuk means you've got units which allow you to maybe null deploy a little bit more without having to lean into your camouflage aero pieces.
Mm.
The change to the link teams as well, the having the Frontovik count as a line Kazak makes it really easy to build cores, duos, and Harrises, and get that special dice, which is really cool.
Mm.
So I think, sorry, you're not duos. You can't do duos with that core link team. But yeah, the front of accounting as a line cabinet really helps with the link team, with the main link team building.
Very cool. Well, speaking of the main link team building, let's hop over to the Army Builder app and take a look.
Yep.
All right, everybody, and here we are in the Infinity N5 Army Builder with the TAK fireteams chart. TAK gets unlimited duos, 1 Haris, and 1 core. And the first team we have here is the Line Kazaks fire team, which can Harris and core. And we can see already some pretty significant changes from this fire team chart in N5 compared to N4. You've picked up the Frontoviks with the Line Kazak tag. Did the Dozers have the tag as well?
I don't know if they had the tag, but they could be part of it as well
Mm.
previously.
And then you
Yeah, I don't
mentioned
think they had the tag.
you mentioned the Barsuk, the conductors. They're the new units that have been able to join this team. And
Mm.
also, Colonel Veronin also counts as a line Kazak, which
Yep.
is very nice. But how do you view this Core and Haris line Kazak fire team?
So the basically, I think it's quite good. It gives you a lot of ways to build it. I'm not sure about the Barsuk and the conductor in the
Mm.
fire team. I haven't used them in the fire team. But to be fair, I only played a little bit of TAK and N5 so far because I've just switched factions more or less. Um, but when I was looking at it, the conductor chain rifles are not a bad addition to it. It's like 7 points, a regular order, and you get template defender.
Mm.
Um, the Dozer's quite a good one in there, and obviously the Vet Kazak being able to join in there as wildcard means you can get the special die on a Vet Kazak for very cheap with
Mm.
2 line Kazaks coming along with him, and obviously, as we've mentioned, the Frontoviks being counted as pure.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Frontoviks though. I think they used to be able to put more Frontoviks in a line Kazak team in N4. Here you're only limited to 1.
Yes, yeah,
Which
yeah.
yeah, that's quite an interesting change.
Yeah, I think you could put more previously. I can't really recall now. It's all a haze. But yeah, having only one means if you're using them for ARO, you're kind of torn between the heavy rocket launcher, which is the very point efficient,
Mm.
good ARO piece, and the sniper, which is a lot more expensive. Um, but something you kind of probably want to use an actor from time to time. So
Mm.
it's a bit of a tricky one there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting dynamic there. Next up, we've got the Veterans Fire Team, who I think picked up the duo tag. I can't quite remember, but otherwise
Yeah,
hasn't
that
really changed. You've got the Veteran Kazak and the Frontovic, both of which have the Veteran tag, and then you can stick in those 112 FTOs.
yes, yeah, absolutely. So this is interesting. With the general points reduction of N5, I think running multiple of their Kazakhs is more viable than
Mm.
ever. So that's definitely interesting. I think the Vet Kazak's a very good unit. The HMG is the obvious one, but I think the T2 rifles can do some work.
Oh, yeah.
Frontoviks are probably, in the year and a half or whatever I've played TAC, Frontoviks are probably the unit I've explored the least because I just don't find them very interesting outside
Mm.
the necessary HRL or the sniper. Um, I'm sure the Spitfire and the engineer profiles are great, but
That's
I
yeah.
haven't really explored them heavily.
Yeah, that's really funny. When I played TAC, it was basically Frontoviks City, but maybe we'll save that till
Yeah,
yeah till we get to the Frontoviks profile itself. But what do
yeah,
you
for
view
sure,
as
for sure.
the main role for this fire team here?
So that one is, I think it gives you, if you go the first, if you go to the line Kazak link, you can get an effective order pool, utility pool,
Mm.
lieutenant place for a lieutenant, so through the line Kazak, and an ARO piece, and you're quite, and you've saved a lot of points, and that gives you an ability to then build into the camo dog warrior dynamo game a little bit.
Mm.
Whilst I think the veteran fire team is, if you want to build TAC a different way, where you want to play the gunfighting and have a more of the gunfighting playstyle where you've got a strong uh, platform, a fire based platform,
Mm.
rather than playing through the camo shenanigans sort of style. So I think it's designed in a way for Cobblers Ballet to avoid you being forced to play only the faction one way, which is camo. You
Mm.
can lean into some pretty good troops through the Kazaks and the Frontoviks.
Yeah, that's really cool. Next up, we've got the Dynamo fire teams, which can duo
Yep.
and Haris. Uh, you can either take a Dynamo or the 112 motorized. How do you see the 112 fitting in this fire team, considering it's not tagged?
I think I think the Dynamos are so good
Mm.
that I don't think I never really reached for the 112 simply because the Dynamos have the mine dispenser. And previously they had some really good profiles. Previously the shotguns were
Templates?
templates.
Mm.
So you had the boarding shotgun Dynamo, you had the Ford Observer Dynamo, which is now gone, which is fine. And you had the Spitfire Dynamo, and between the mine dispenser was really the big difference. Having
Mm.
mine dispenser and not having mine dispenser means that the 112 is just not something I reach for.
Yeah, no, it's very fair. And you mentioned, you really like to put these guys in a duo potentially.
Um, I think you want. I think it's perfectly fine to take two in a list,
Mm.
and then whether you deploy them in a duo or not depends a lot on the table matchup and the game plan. And yeah, so but that's something I think you should do on the fly, uh, rather than just setting in stone that you're going to run them as a duo, simply because sometimes table doesn't allow it, or sometimes you just they're more useful
Mm.
separated.
No, I mean it's cool to have a unit, that versatile where you can take them to a game and not, even have all the details figured out where you can adjust to whatever situation you find yourself in. That's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think they're really, really, really good.
All right, next up, uh, a little pet unit of yours. We've got the Ratnik fire
Yes.
team that can duo and
Yep.
Harith. You can take 3 Ratniks if you'd really like to, and up to 2 Frontoviks.
The dream. Again, this is the faction without a tag, and
Mm.
again, this is giving you a way to, I guess, build your own tag in a way, where you'll either run two Ratniks or a Ratnik in a Harris or a duo, to bring it up, not to obviously tag levels, but to give you something a little bit more forgiving in the
Mm.
sense of, and something more of a stronger fire-based platform than you would with any other troop. Not really something I've mucked around with in a Harris. I love the Ratnik, but not in a
Mm.
Harris or Link option because again, the Frontoviks for me are good, but not my playstyle, not my type of unit.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty expensive to chuck 2 Frontoviks in with a Ratnik. I could see you, taking a Ratnik, taking a Frontovik engineer, then taking another Frontovik to put up on ARO turn 1, and just sort of have him die
Mm,
and go from there. But even then, yeah, that's still quite
it's a
expensive.
lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot, isn't it? Yeah. You can take the Frontovic engineer and move up with the Ratnik because the Ratnik is vulnerable to hacking. So having an
Mm.
engineer right on hand is like pretty cool in the sense like sure they hack you or disable you or whatever, you can just engineer them straight there. But to
Mm.
be honest, you can do that with an Armadillo, and it's probably better to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Then in the
But the
wild
Ratnik
cards,
can get.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
Well, the Ratnik can get 6 AP dice, I think,
Yeah,
uh, which
yeah,
is kind of which is kind of cool.
yeah. No, it's super
Um,
cool.
and even so, with BS13, I don't know how the maths works out, but I think Burst 6, I think I think Burst 6 BS13 is probably pretty close to equivalence with BS 14 or 15 with Burst 4. I think it
Mm.
gets pretty close.
Yeah, no, the Ratnik's really cool piece. It's got some pretty nice changes, which we'll get to later. Then in the
Hmm.
wild cards, you can take 3 vet Kazaks into any link and Colonel Veronin. How do you see these wild cards playing into the wider ecosystem of these link team charts?
Yeah, so the vet Kazakhs, having them be able to go anywhere is really good because they are just an excellent like profile. Like they're very well tuned.
Mm.
So having them go anywhere is pretty useful, to be honest. And you can, yeah, it's up to the player creativity in terms of what they're trying to get from their list. But it basically gives you a fire base, a really strong fire base from into any of your links if you want.
Mm.
Whilst Colonel Veronin, he was previously like Kazak and veteran in N4. That's one thing I remember. So he
Yeah,
could
yeah.
be pure. But his main role is obviously more of a support piece.
Mm.
But in certain missions, I think there's play to have him move up the table. So those
Mm.
armory missions where he can get armory and what's their panic room, where he doesn't even necessarily need to get in there because armory is obviously narrow gate, but
Mm.
having models, having fish in a barrel gets him to use his toolkit in a pretty interesting way where he's got guard and shotguns. So
Mm.
he's really giving you really bad options. And by having the room missions, you know where your enemy is going to be, so deploying him is a lot easier and getting him into the fight's a lot easier.
Yeah, very cool. All right, well, let's take a look at the units in TAK. Starting off hot with one of the new units, the
Yes.
conductor's Trans-Tarctic Railway Troops.
Yep. Perfect.
So
Excellent.
we've got 4
Um,
profiles here. A chain
mhm,
rifle FTO with light shotgun and shock mine you mentioned a bit earlier.
mhm.
This incredibly strange +2 damage shock marksman
It
rifle.
is so strange. Yep.
The maybe slightly cooler infiltration rifle Flammenspier, and then this paramedic FTO. Uh, this comes across to me as a very weird and wonderful set of profiles. How do you see the role of the conductor in TAC?
Yes, it's like one of the newest units. So I reached for the most obvious one, which was either the 7-point FTO
Mm,
with a regular 7-point order with a template and mines, or the camouflage infiltrator, because the flame and spear gives you a really good option in terms of being part of a dangerous coordinate order for
mm,
very little points. So and it's also a good ARO piece because even though it's got no mimetism, so it doesn't add to the shell game, it is still something that the enemy has to respect, much like a Dale army, because
yeah.
of that fireman spear. And the thing is, they can't just kill it; they have to discover and shoot it. So it either takes an extra order, or there's a chance for failure there.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say they do seem very much like a regular Daylami, and I do like what you said about the coordinated order, with kind of that being
Mm.
a, you know, a very near and dear tactic to the Ariadnan playbook, where
Yes.
potentially it's not something TAC could do as cheaply as the
Hmm.
conductor now allows you to do with a Flammenspier, and I think I prefer Flammenspier to Panzerfaust just with that opportunity to catch
Yeah.
people out, burn people to the ground. I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a use case there. It is BS10, so
Mm,
you're not expecting much from it. But if there's 3 other units shooting, having a coin flip where you hit somebody with flame template, it's pretty nice.
yeah, I think as well. You've got a max of 2 conductors in a line Kazak fire team. I could see you setting yourself up with 2 line Kazak chain rifles. Sorry, not line Kazak conductor chain rifles some line Kazak, paramedic, or something else, and then your gun using the conductors to get your bonus instead of
Yep.
line Kazaks. I think that's a pretty interesting way to use them as well.
Yeah, the only thing is conductors don't count as line Kazaks.
Yeah, yeah. So
So,
you
so
take
the
you take two conductors. You have to take one line Kazak to glue the team,
Yep,
but you use the
yep.
two conductors to get the bonus.
Yeah, yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, that's another way to do it. Yeah,
I mean, look,
that's pretty
mind you,
clever.
it's a savings of only 2 points, but
No, it's not a
yeah.
big saving, but I guess yeah. Look, we can talk about every profile for quite a while, but I think there's definitely a use case in having the conductors as the ablative troops if you
Mm,
were to push your line Kazakh link into the midfield. So you could have two conductors, a line Kazakh, or two line Kazakhs, and then a vet Kazakh, and then as you move to the midfield, you obviously don't want to lose the line Kazakhs or
mm.
the vet Kazakh, because they're probably more useful. So the conductors with their chain rifles and their mines act as that ablative shield,
Yeah,
potentially against
yeah,
warbands and such.
no. I think now that you mention it, this actually does open up a very different way to run your line Kazakh core, where you can put in
Mm-hmm.
that aggressive tilt. I think
Yep.
the 7-point FTO is just a very optimized lean profile where you're getting everything you want, a little bit of tech in those shock mines, while not breaking
Yep.
the bank.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, shall we move on to the beautiful line Kazakh? Has
Beautiful.
anything really changed here?
I don't think so. 11-point paramedic, that's the same lieutenant, 9 points, no SWC, so you can hide your lieutenants quite easily.
Mm,
Forward observer, 10 points, that's all pretty normal. I never really reached for the HMG or the missile launcher personally, so
yeah,
I can tell you if they changed.
yeah. You just got better options in terms of those longer ranged weapons. It is good
Hmm.
to know with the forward observer, you get the special die on your flash pulses
Yes.
now. So that's a pretty
Yep.
nice change. And having a forward observer line troop is really nice because no matter how you're paying 10 points for essentially a BS-13 ARO.
Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I mean if you do end up running that let's say that conductor base, I could
Hmm.
see you picking the forward observer as your glue piece for the
Yeah.
link team. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean I like line Kazaks. They're just a very good price. Ariadna has that with their line troops.
Yeah, and they're aligned to under 10 points potentially with one armor and BS11. It's very good.
Yeah. All right. Next up, one of your personal favorites, the Dynamo. They've picked up the sort of new denesting of Impetuous, where now they have limited cover. So you don't get
Hmm.
to pick, what kind of cover they get. They've kept that MIM, which is really nice, but you also mentioned that they lost the forward observer profile.
Yeah, the Fort Observer profile. If you're on the forums or the Discord, they'll whine about it and be like saying that's the best profile. It was fine. It's fine. We don't need it. So I had to take a stab. But the Dynamo kit is founded, in two things. It's the Dogged and the Mind Dispenser for me.
Mm,
Those are the two standout skills that the Dynamos carry that I think are the most that really make them stand out and do it and stand out as a motorbike or motorbike troop. The Mind Dispenser, I think, is the first thing I want to tackle. I think this is an incredible, incredible piece of kit
mm.
which helps you be makes the unit feel unfair, right? So anytime a unit feels unfair, that's probably that's saying something, right?
mm,
I mean, it suggests it's a strong unit.
mm.
So being able to throw out mines without having to see the enemy, and then come around and engage it, puts the opponent in a really difficult spot because they can potentially be facing two templates
Mm.
plus the face-to-face roll, or they're dodging and giving you a free attack on them with no risk.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly powerful where you're getting a free reload in the states phase as well. And really, the amount of forks in the game has been pretty drastically reduced from
Mm-hmm.
N4 to N5. So to still have that Mind Dispenser available
Yep.
on the Dynamo and sort of it sort of makes the dynamos more survivable in a way.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Because he can put your opponent in a position where they don't want to. They want to dodge. They prioritize dodging the mines that you've put down. So
Mm,
they're giving you a free, I guess, one-sided attack in a way where there's a good odds that you won't. There's guaranteed you're not going to die because they're dodging.
mm,
But added to the mine dispenser though is the other tactic of setting up your other troops to engage. So you place the mine dispensers in range of a target and then having a stronger troop engage that target. So to kind of add weight to whatever attack you're putting into. Whatever attack you're putting into your opponent. So, for example, any one wound ARO piece on ARO, even if you're in a position where with TAK where you don't have the greatest ability to win the fight or guarantee that you're going to win the fight. So, for example, they might have to 3 or 6.
mm.
Having mines go on in their face means that you're going to guarantee some damage get through as well as potentially win the fight. So I think the mine dispenser is a really key tool to getting good with TAK for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've had a bit of experience using mine dispensers with the Gator and Corregidor, and it's
Hmm.
like, I mean, yeah, it's frankly a unit with a mine dispenser is just like revolutionary to how that unit plays. Like it's astoundingly good.
Yeah, there is a drawback. It is more order. It is a tax on your orders because you got to do the setup. So
Mm,
it's not free. And if you do it every time, it's not. Or you do it when it's necessary. You want to do it when it's necessary rather than not. So, for
mm.
example, I think you and me might have played a game. Was it you? I can't remember. But anytime I face a Mim 6 thing like a Hippolyta or Perseus or something like that,
Mm.
right? This is I use the Dynamo boarding shotgun to engage those because I lay the mines and I come around with the shotgun and give them a bad option because sure they can kill me, but having guaranteed hits on Mim 6 units when you're playing a faction like TAC, which just has no
Mm.
access to MSV effectively, is one of your best fights other
Mm.
than close combat.
And what do you see as the different roles for the different profiles here?
Yeah, for sure. The submachine gun Panzerfaust is really useful as a quick early assault piece,
Mm.
as well as a contributor to any coordinated order attacks with that Panzerfaust. I think that's so between, and you can even do both. So as your first order might be coordinated order, couple of units, the Dynamo throw the Dynamo forward. It shoots its Panzerfaust as part of the order. They're most likely not going to target the Dynamo,
Mm.
and then so you're getting up the board, you're getting into position to go further and do more damage, and you'll get contributing to the coordinated order attack. So
Mm.
that's really useful.
Yeah.
The AP Spitfire, it's a really good secondary gun. Without cover, it's good, but it's not amazing.
Mm.
You got to be careful with who you engage with. You
Mm.
really want to be engaging units that, if they win the firefight, which they very well might because you are 4 dice BS12, just mimetism,
Mm-hmm.
but no cover. You want to be engaging units that don't have shock or double action
Yeah.
weaponry,
Mm.
so that way you can afford to get unlucky once, because over the course of 2 orders with 4 dice each order, you should be able to win the fight and do some damage, get some damage through. But
Mm.
if you're engaging shock troops, units with shock or burning or double action, that's probably not the fight you want to be taking. And finally, with the Spitfire, you want to be using your speed to get them out of cover to
Mm.
really up your odds if you can.
Yeah, no, I think the Dynamo Spitfire, it's a really great sort of cleanup crew after you've put
Yes.
down your opponent's, big heavy ARO pieces. Screaming down a flank, getting some of those crossboard shots
Hmm.
on units, crouching behind barriers in the midfield, that kind of thing. Really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really good unit.
It's really good. Yeah. I think that's exactly the role for it. And yeah, so I think I've touched on the dogged, but the main thing is when you use dynamos, you really got to choose your targets well because you want to maximize that dogged because, like
Mm.
we said very early at the start of the video, TAK are a fragile faction. They don't generally survive losing a firefight. This is one of the few units that does, provided
Mm.
you've chosen the fight correctly and you've engaged somebody who's not gonna bypass that dogged skill.
Yeah, for sure. And then you've got
But
this
the
paramedic
paramedic,
here as well,
yep,
who costs 1.5 SWIC. How do you use the paramedic, and how do you factor that SWIC into its cost?
you pay it every time,
Yeah.
but it can add up to it. It can add up, especially if you want to run, for example, a duo of a Spitfire and paramedic. That's 1.5
Mm.
SWC all of a sudden. So it does factor into it. Generally speaking, the paramedic's my go-to profile
Mm.
because it has the mine dispenser, as we talked about, has the boarding shotgun. So previously I had templates, so it was really cheap. It was really dirty,
Mm.
but now it's a bit fairer. But it still gives you an up 6 to your roll, and that really helps against mimetism. Not to mention the mine dispenser also helps against mimetism units because it's guaranteeing the hits, but it's
Mm.
also giving you a really fast specialist. So it's doing two roles. It's giving you a problems. It's giving you a solution to mimetic models, giving you a boost to your other troops because you can do that setup with the mine dispenser.
Mm.
You can also go deep with it and do some early or even second turn assault to try and take away some orders because it's very fast, but you're also getting a very fast specialist. So that's my favorite profile.
Yeah, no, I think it being a specialist is incredibly valuable. And I think, anyone who played Infinity N4, knows how awful the feeling is when someone comes around the corner with a shotgun with templates in the mix as well. Uh,
Yeah,
just that such a high chance to hit. Fantastic units. And yeah,
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
one of the better, more exciting units in TAC is the Dynamo. I think really
Yeah,
cool unit.
if you were to take the law, I guess aspect, I suspect these are based on the Cossacks a little bit from
Mm.
history because Russian, Ukrainians, or all that part of the world. I think they were renowned horse riders of the Cossacks. So I think this is I think they made this profile with that in mind.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, on to the Streloks, which I feel like are one of the poster childs for TAC. When people
Yes.
first start playing TAC, they see the Strelok mine layer and go, three fucking camo markers.
Yeah, for one model. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This unit embodies tact. It has mimetism. It has multiple camos. It has forward deployment and has
mm.
one wound. So yeah, it's the embodiment of tact.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, yeah, how do you want to do this one?
I don't know. It hasn't changed an incredible amount, just aside from points going down a teeny bit.
Yep,
The K9 antipode profile that picked up a tack bow, which is pretty funny.
it is. It is. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, well, it's always had the trench hammer, but now it's got the tapo as well, which is kind of cute.
Mm.
I guess that's to exploit stealth. I haven't really played around with the tapo, but yeah, should we just go from the top?
Yeah, totally.
No worries. So the T2 marksman. This is a profile I've used a couple times. With BS11, you have to use your camouflage to flank any enemy you shoot.
Mm.
Um, in reality, for it to really pay dividends, I think it's a perfectly serviceable profile. But as you make your list, as you get all the models in your list generally that you want, um, this is you're kind of starting to hamper when you start to hamper from points. This is the
Mm.
unit that gets cut first.
Yeah.
So if you want to use the T2 profile, you kind of have to build it into it. You have to build the list into it, and I
Mm.
recommend people try it. But when they do, make sure you engage by taking people out of cover. So using that camouflage to move, recamo if you have to, move, and take them out of cover to really get the usefulness out of it.
Yeah, it's a very order intensive setup. But with the T2 ammo,
Mhm.
it's potentially a pretty good payoff. But you got to balance that with what do you want to be spending your orders on. So I think, yeah,
Yes.
it's like you said, it's fine, it's serviceable, but I think it probably does get pushed out.
Yeah, often it does, but it definitely can prove useful if you learn to use it.
Mm.
But is it? Yeah, it is nice to have a gunfighter starting in the midfield. So you are right; it is order intensive, but you are saving some orders by starting 8 inches up the table. And it is burst 3. There's a lot of T2 weapons in TAK, which are burst 2, and
Mm.
I know about I don't know about your experience in Infinity, but I don't think burst 2 weapons are all that reliable personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think three is the big step up in terms of when you feel
Yes.
really comfortable shooting with a
Hmm.
weapon.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
he's just hitting that little peak in the bell curve of when you want to use him.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. The next profile, the 16-point profile, the most useful part of this profile is it gives you a fork with the submachine gun chain hold.
Mm.
So that's useful. Heavy mines is great. Being able to suppression fire, you'll notice
Yeah,
that and the TQ Marksman are the only, and the K9 antipode are the only profiles that can suppression fire. So that's the value there, and it's obviously cheap as well.
yeah, it's a very nice ablative piece. With some of the other units we'll look at, maybe they've got the infiltration and the camo, but not the template, or they'll have the template and the infiltration, but not the camo. So to still have that
Hmm.
in one package, add another decoy to that sort of, yeah,
Yes,
to the swarm, I guess you can
to
say.
the swarm.
Yeah,
Yeah, to that shell game, absolutely.
yeah, and yeah, I mean the submachine gun, chain colt, and shock mines, they're all very useful tools in the active and the reactive turns. I like what you said about the suppressive. I kind of view it as more of a late game piece in something like acquisition, where if you just need to
Yeah.
hold a point or quickly run in, and trade with a unit, I think the Strelok SMG is really good for that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So for 16 points to have a Mim 3 cover and suppression, so not -9 mod, can like in certain situations can really yeah, especially when the opponent's taking some damage and they don't have
Mm.
the
Yeah, I mean, in
perfect
a
trip
in a
for it.
world where templates have been really heavily reduced, against
Yes.
some factions and some lists, that can actually be a pretty decent hill.
Yes, yeah, you can. You can. Um, and the K9 antipode is basically giving you all the same tools, but it's always giving you the antipode. Um, the antipode's quite good. The biggest thing is having a midfield sensor.
Mm.
So attack strength is camouflage and mimetism. It also has the ability to win the midfield mimetism camouflage game because
Mm.
it's got sensor on quite a lot of profiles. And if you don't want to reach for the antipodes pack, this is a nice in between. Because unless you want to bring up Veronin up the midfield to do your censoring, but this is a really good way to deal with your enemy's camouflage markers, and as well as I guess troops that are deployed on buildings and such, so like hackers or infiltrating troops who are deployed in
Mm.
buildings. It's a really easy and efficient way to clear them.
Yeah, I mean, camo v camo could be a pretty miserable situation for the active player. So having that sensor
Yes.
is really nice. I think in my last year of Infinity, one big takeaway from me has just been how useful sensor is, and so many
Yes.
ways to use sensor. It's such a great
Yep.
skill. And at the end of the day, you've also got the classic peripheral sort of forking, where that Strelok comes around the corner with the SMG and chain colt, or
Hmm.
puts down a mine previously, then the antipode comes around, threatening, tossing that trench hammer on a 15 is pretty nice, or getting into CC.
Yeah, and the K9 antipode has camouflage himself, so he
Mm.
can go into your back arc and then throw the trench hammer as well, and he's quick enough to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and that's without risking the Strelok, right? So you're not risking losing an order.
Mm.
So you can do some really, and when you discover a camouflage marker, they have to choose a facing. So
Mm.
then you've got the speed with Antipode to take advantage of that as well. So it's a fun unit. It's not easy. It's not easy to use,
Mm.
but it's definitely a fun unit. It definitely has play. You can also just engage something and then with the antipode into CC and then shoot into the combat, and you can lose your antipode, but you can also like it's a safe
Safe
gunfight in the sense
engagement.
that
Yeah.
it's a safe engagement, right? You don't get many of those in Infinity. So there's a lot of cheap little tricks you can do. Or you can use, for example, you play against JSA. They've got
Mm.
MIM6 camo markers, right?
Mm.
Which you know what they are. They're heavy rocket launchers.
Mm.
Use the antipode to discover. Worst case scenario is they shoot it and come out of camo. That's what you want to do anyway. That's
Yeah.
what you want them to do anyway. But you're discovering them on I think tens because up down up six
I
minus
think
six and then
my
cover.
understanding is that uh, sensor ignores other modifiers.
Oh yeah, sorry. Does it? No. But when you discover, so when you have sensor
Oh
and you
yeah, sure.
discover,
Yeah.
you get +6 for the discover.
Mm.
So you can use the antipode to discover their MIM6 camera markers, and then you can
Mm.
actually engage them. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
other
because
nice thing as well is, if you are going for that long range discover, you could set up some mines with the Dynamo, but if you stand
yeah,
up the Strelok and the antipode, you're getting two chances of that discover, which makes it a lot more reliable.
yeah. So with the mine, you can't do it if they're in camo unless there's
Mm.
another eligible target. So you've got to play around that a little bit. But yeah, generally speaking, you can do a lot of things. The antipode, and the thing is, if they shoot the antipode, you're not losing an order.
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah.
who cares? It is a really useful troop, but again, much like the T2, when you're starting to build the list and you get your spetsnaz, you get this
Mm.
and that, and the points start getting tight, you often it's one of the ones you get cut.
Yeah, yeah, no, I feel the same way. It's especially hard being, so much more expensive than what some people might consider the more workhorse profiles on the Strelok, which is
Mm,
the mine layer and forward observer. But yeah, there's definitely
yep,
some cool tech to be had.
yeah, yep, absolutely. The mine layer, that's the profile I've used the least, and it's also the one that needs least explaining. Good denial piece, good addition to the shell games and the camouflage spam,
Mm.
and perfectly serviceable. Less so now because you've lost the templates on the shotgun, but
Yeah.
sure, it's good.
And then your forward observer is just, quite a good specialist, already being 8 inches up the board. Flash
Uh,
pulse is pretty decent as well.
yeah, this is the profile I've used the most
Mm.
out of the Streloks. It is a good handbrake piece in aero. So you deploy it in the midfield somewhere, and you can deploy it where it's not looking forward; it's just looking
Mm.
across the table and back. And basically, you can deploy it in a way where if there's a troop that comes through your lines and starts to do damage, you can always reveal to flash pulse and try to stop that attack run. I think, and they've obviously got the obvious utility in that they're forward deploying specialists
Mm.
with mines and on boarding shotgun. They're very, very good. But yeah, as an ARO, I think one of the things people miss on this profile is how good they are as an ARO piece.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't
definitely.
cost you much. He has the secondary function of being a specialist, and it can stop an attack run from anything because,
Mm.
as we know, flash pulse disables.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's really hitting the nail on the head with you're paying these 17 points and you're getting two very important roles that he's very good at executing.
Yep,
So it's
absolutely.
just quite a good bundle.
You can also use them as part of a coordinated order, but
Mm.
you really got to be set up for it because you can't deploy with a decoy if you can't be part of a coordinated order if you've deployed with the decoy skill.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
if you'd want to deploy him without the decoy, so then you can use him as a part of the coordinated order in turn one. So
Mm.
it's a little bit it's less serviceable in that role, but it can
Mm.
still do something.
Yeah, I mean, if if you're doing a coordinated order in the first turn, it probably means you're going first. You can set up for that,
Yep.
but that's a good note for the people at home.
Hmm.
All right, might move on to the Frontoviks Separate Assault Battalion. They've
Sure.
picked up Warhorse, which is the new veteran.
Yep.
Basically the exact same, but you're getting that immunity from the BS attack -3. Uh,
Yes, actually.
yeah. So yeah, really Frontoviks are immune, to a fair amount of tech, which is pretty nice. But
Yeah.
yeah, they've all got an assault pistol, which is really nice. All their points have gone down a decent bit. Uh, And I
Oh
know,
yeah, fair bit.
yeah, and I know you said you didn't use them an incredible amount, but that the heavy rocket launcher and the AP sniper rifle were two really nice standout pieces for you.
Yeah. With uh, so I'll let you talk to these a little bit more in a second,
Hmm.
because I think you've got some thoughts that I might not on them. But the reason I reached for them SP1 sniper was it helped me against other factions which utilize smoke.
Hmm.
It also gave me ability to deal with MIM3 ARO pieces, so that was big help. The times I reached for the heavy rocket launcher is when I wanted an ARO piece without having to reveal camouflage markers, or to set up to set up engagements
Hmm.
uh, where I can predict where my opponent's going to engage, and then that helps me visualize where to set up my camo markers, because then I can probably deploy the Frontovik rocket launcher in a way where there's a very clear lane that my opponent's likely to engage from,
Hmm.
and then I can utilize my camouflage markers to watch that same lane to make it uncomfortable for my opponent to engage through there. Whether those camo markers are real or decoys that my opponent wastes time discovering,
Hmm.
is depending on my opponent, of course. But the ability to potentially have my opponent engage a specific avenue is really useful, and that's what the heavy rocket launcher was useful for.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the strengths of TAC as well is that you don't care an incredible amount about your SWIC. So
No.
19 points, even though it is 1.5 SWIC, you really don't feel too bad about losing that in ARO, where other factions you're a lot less comfortable with, dispensing of that SWIC.
Mm. And it's not hard for it to get to the BS bonus
Mm.
of 13. With mimetism and a dangerous weapon like a HRL, I think, yeah, it's very respectable.
Yeah, I mean we've seen the meta sort of slightly shift where maybe you're seeing a little bit less visors, making that mimetism stronger. But mimetism, it's always been such a great skill. Even on flashbots, everyone's got their frustrating story where that mim just put them under
Yep.
where they needed to hit.
Actually, it's a good point. One of the things tact engaging flashbolts is a really dreadful experience.
Mm.
So because you have no BTS, because you have no visors, and because flash pulse is so debilitating to a potential attack run, with TAC, I found myself respecting flash pulse bots so much and
Mm.
ignoring them and avoiding them where necessary, where possible. And that's actually really, it's been a really nice experience playing Tunguska, where I've just been able to just shoot at them and mow them down, which is yeah, it's pretty funny. Like
Yeah.
flash bosses are really tough to deal with for TAC in my opinion, and
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
pretty
you
funny.
switched from TAC to like the perfect anti-flash bot faction.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
Outranged
So, yeah.
Grenzer marksman MSV1, get fucked. Goodbye.
Exactly. So that's just like, it's such
Yeah.
because otherwise with TAC you're usually on tens against flash pulse bots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Like
not
that's your
great.
best fight is
Yeah.
tens, because you don't have the visor, you don't have the mimetism.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
mean,
what do you think about these Frontoviks? What makes you reach for them if you were to play TAC, or when you did play TAC?
so yeah, I mean, when I play TAC, I kind of viewed the Frontoviks as the backbone of my army, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay. Yep.
there is one profile I'm really sad didn't make it to N5, which was the Engineer Light Rocket Launcher. I thought that profile was
Yeah.
amazing because I think the AP Spitfire, I think you're paying a bit too much for it because at the end of the day, the Frontoviks are a little squishy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I really found the light rocket launcher engineer was really great, kind of mid to late game, standing up. I think the Frontoviks, even though they are fragile and they do go down, they bring for the points cost sort of just enough of a threshold of gunfighting, and I think
Mm.
honestly the AP sniper rifle MSV1, I think it's sort of something you almost feel the need to take. I think suppressing, war bands and impetuous phases, I think that's really important, or else you just get sort of walked past. And even with the AP sniper rifle, being able to hang out at the back of your DZ, get people out of range, stacking those odds like you were mentioning before, I think is really important.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
I think the engineer and paramedic are both pretty decent profiles. Maybe suffer a little bit from their points cost, but that T2 rifle I found to be an incredibly effective gun if you want to move up the table with some Frontoviks, kind of cover that sniper rifle's bad ranges. And yeah, I've always liked them quite a bit.
Mm.
It's a way to build TAK.
And aesthetically, they're like modern military looking, which is really appealing as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like the loadout, like they get a great loadout from in terms of weaponry.
Mm.
Assault pistols, T2 rifles, heavy rifle launchers, AP Spitfires, AP sniper rifles, like really great kit. But I just don't think, for me, the stat line never, but the stat line and skill makeup never really drew me to them in terms of my main the core of my lists.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, I think for me they sit. You've kind of got a spectrum with 3 points where you've got line Kazak, Frontovik, vet Kazak is kind of where your spectrum is. And
Yes.
I view the Frontoviks as actually a very lean piece where they've got a list of relevant skills. The stat line, it's not going to excite, but
Yep.
I found it more interesting than kind of spamming line Kazaks in that core. That might change now that you've got some more interesting options in that core, admittedly. And then, vet Kazaks were just really expensive in N4.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think.
Well, they're still expensive, but yeah,
yeah. So for me, I guess it was like you could run, 4 or 5 line Kazaks, you could run 2 or 3 Frontoviks, or you could run 1 or 2 veteran Kazaks, and I kind of just like that middle point. But yeah, I think it's personal taste thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good observation. If I was to, when I do come back around to TAC, I'll probably, that'll be the last probably avenue for me, the next avenue to explore for me in terms of list building to get a bit more use out of Frontoviks.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might be the only person at the funeral for the Frontovik engineer light rocket launcher, but
No, it was a good utility. They're given a pound of instead, which is
lame.
yeah, which is fine.
No,
Yeah,
I'm torn. No, I'm fine, bro. I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm doing fine, bro.
Gonna have my first crash out with Val on the line. All right.
No.
Well, we might move on to, I mean, probably another one of the poster childs of TAC, the Kazak spetsnaz.
Yes.
You've got kind of these two groupings of different profiles. You've got your parachutist profiles and your decoy ground deployed profiles. And this is a unit that can be a bit divisive in terms of what it does on the table. What are your thoughts on the spetsnaz?
So I think it's a good profile. It is effectively a mimetism profile in a way because the marksmanship is, it's effectively a multi-spectral visor profile.
Yeah.
In a way because the marksmanship helps you hit things with, so it acts like a type of MSV1, I guess. The reality for me is I didn't take these guys all that often. And the other part of this is on the forums, this is one of the units that is most referenced to when people cry out for a better gunfighter for TAC. They usually reference their personal experiences where the Kazak, the Kazak spetsnaz comes out, got 4 dice and 4 15s and they critted, or they just get unlucky and they lose their main gun piece, and then they feel locked out of the game.
Yeah.
So that's where people find this unit polarizing. So let's just talk about the HMG to start with. I think for me, it's a mistake to rely on this as your main gunfighter in a list because it is that fragile. It is a great secondary gunfighter in your list, alongside something more durable like a vet Kazak, if you want, or a Frontovik, or a cord Frontovik.
Mm.
But if this is your main gun piece and you hope to win all your important gunfights with it, the reality is the HMG range bands mean that you're going to be engaging in the enemy's ideal range, most likely, therefore
Mm.
giving them good odds as well. And that that means that the BS-12 and the marksmanship, sure, they're great, and the MIMTAs and surprise attack, but it doesn't guarantee, one, you win the fight, and two, it doesn't guarantee you're going to, because the HMG is not AP, it doesn't guarantee you're going to kill them either.
Mm.
So you might have to fight again without that surprise attack. So all I'm saying to people is, if you're down in the spetsnaz, because you're taking it as your main gunfighter, and I think you need to build it in the list as a secondary gunfighter. That's
Yeah.
one thing I'll say.
Yeah. No, I definitely echo that. I think a lot of people take the spetsnaz without any redundancy. And, I think a different way
Mm,
to frame it is that the Kazakh Spetsnaz HMG can be your main gunfighter, but you do need to have a backup gunfighter and also a backup gunfighter with a different role who can crack armor. Because if you just
yeah,
take that Kazakh Spetsnaz, yeah, absolutely, he might die, he might live, whatever. But if he's trying to shoot
mm,
at a tag, like nothing's going to happen.
exactly. The one thing that the Spetsnaz HMG doesn't do, which
Mm,
is the strength of TAK, is it doesn't fight enemies in it doesn't utilize that long range band where you're fighting enemies in their bad range.
mm,
You you'll find them in their good range, um, and doesn't um, it doesn't crack through their armor.
mm,
So so you are stacking mods against them because you have the mimetism, the surprise attack, the cover or whatever, and
mm.
you're taking away their mods through marksmanship. But you're not. But the thing is, those mods that you're imposing on them are mitigated by the fact that you're most likely in their good range band. So
Yeah.
yeah, so one thing you can probably do with the HMG is probably shoot outside 32,
Mm.
potentially as well. If I'm not sure the odds on that, you might want to run through a calculator a little bit before you just take my advice on it. But there are probably situations where between the mimetism, the bad range, and the cover, it could potentially, I guess, encourage the enemy to potentially dodge, which then makes it a fight in I guess a risk-free fight, which is kind of what you want with the
Yeah.
spetsnaz.
I mean, look,
With
yeah.
low armor units.
One thing I will clarify is that I do think the Kazakh Spetsnaz HMG is good. I think
Yes,
it gets a lot of
absolutely.
points just in efficiency. I mean, if it's shooting anything,
Yes.
with armor 5 or less, that's not a tag. You get a lot of orders back just by how quickly the Kazakh can dispatch that. Because chances are, with that high ballistic skill, the higher your ballistics, the more shots are going
Mm.
to go through. And that might sound like a really stupid, best driver and fastest car wins the race sort of thing. But, a lot of other gunfighters, if they're, really good, maybe, BS-13 with MSV, sure, that's cutting
Mm.
your opponent's defensive tech. But if you can raise your chance to hit, you're going to get more
Mm.
dice through. So I think that's where the
Yeah.
Spetsnaz really shines, is it can save you orders in mowing down those, light infantry, medium infantry, even some heavy infantry in arrow, and save you a lot of time in that way.
But the criticism, but one of the things that I guess what I was saying to mitigate is one of the biggest complaints about the spetsnaz is that chance to get unlucky,
Mm,
right?
mm,
That chance that opponent rolls a good number of like a 9, right? Because and you roll 8s and
yeah.
above 15s or whatever, right? That's a real feel bad. To
Mm,
reduce the enemy's ability to do that, you want to stack the mods in a way where they're hitting on such low numbers that they got to crit, and then you got to, crits are crits,
mm.
or they choose to do something other than shoot.
Yeah, I
And
mean
I
that's
think,
that's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think you can do that a little bit better. Um, yeah, I think if you're doing that a little bit, where you're reducing the risk of even taking a wound,
Mm,
I think that's pretty useful as well. But no, look, there's no denying it's a great piece. but it is fragile, and people maybe over rely on it when they play TAK.
Yeah. Now you were sort of talking a bit about, you're playing TAC, you want to stack those odds. You can do that with the HMG. But what's your view on the AP sniper rifle? If that's the way you want to play your spetsnaz, is there potential that the sniper rifle might be the better choice?
I don't think it's the better choice, but it has the the potential to do something the HMG doesn't, which is stack those odds
Mm,
to a point where the enemy is not bothering shooting back. Instead, they're doing something else, or if they are shooting back, the chances are that they're really fishing for crits. Um, the only problem though is two dice. You're going from four dice to two
mm,
dice. You are getting the AP, so it just doesn't feel like an efficient way to deal with problems. And
yeah.
the in the way that you might get unlucky with four dice, with the two dice, you can just you're more likely. So with the HMG, when you use the HMG, you can get unlucky. You can lose a fight because the opponent gets a good roll.
Mm,
Whilst with the sniper, you can get unlucky by the fact you get a bad roll, as in
yeah.
you roll a
Yeah.
one or something,
One
right?
of the, yeah.
And yeah, and it's just because there's so little die. So it's an interesting like option between the two profiles. And which one you take for? You're usually going to take the HMG, but I'm sure you can build a list in a way where the sniper is actually useful
Yeah. I
and
mean,
worth taking.
my hot take is I think the sniper rifle, we'll use strong language, is a little bit dog shit.
Yep.
I think, the reason you're taking a Spetsnaz is for that potential for the very efficient, saving you orders by winning fights quite well. I think I
Yep.
agree with you. Two dice is incredibly fragile. It is a really
Yes.
big, like statistically, it's a really big jump. From two to three is a huge jump. And yeah, like
Mm,
you said, if you're worried about getting unlucky, I don't think the AP sniper rifle fixes that. I think you're losing a lot of efficiency in only having two dice. So I think, even when you want to, try stacking those odd solution, I think the HMG might be better for that. And then also having utility to act in other ways that maybe the AP sniper rifle can.
yeah, yeah. And just going back to the HMG for a second,
Mm,
the other thing is because it doesn't have the stopping power because it doesn't have AP, you're likely having to fight some people multiple orders, two or
mm,
three, and every time you do that engagement, there's a chance that your opponent's going to get a good roll or a crit. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure anyone who has a better grasp of mathematics than me is probably saying that's wrong. But I don't know. There's something he feels about it. It's like oh, I'm doing this fight again. Like my time's going to come where I'm going to get unlucky if
yeah.
I'm not putting the enemy down.
I think, maybe we can run the stats later, but I think it is complicated where, you do have the higher damage essentially with the
Mm,
AP, but you're
mm.
getting more dice, more chances to make them do that roll. It sort of
Yep.
reminds me of the revelation every calculator Infinity user has when you realize AP and DA are statistically the same up to like 8 armor or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Like,
Yeah. I remember.
yeah, I mean every Infinity true Infinity gamer has that realization moment, and I think that might be a situation with the Spetsnaz. But again, neither of us have run the numbers. Maybe some
No.
homework for the for for
From
everyone
the
playing along
listeners,
at home. Yeah.
absolutely. Um, Now the parachutists, I this the parachutist is most useful when you're looking to do classifieds,
Mm,
or to do some assassinations. Throwing grenades on Fizz 12 is not bad. The boarding shotgun getting an extra burst um, in the new change is pretty cool. The only
mm,
thing is, in the previous edition, I never took the boarding shotgun because there was too many templates in the
yeah.
game.
Mm,
I always took the rifle, but now I think the shotgun's probably more appealing. The big nerf to this guy is his close combat is pretty much dog shit because he can't decharge people anymore.
yeah.
So
Well,
the
he went up in
APCC
martial arts, which is really nice. Before he was just martial arts level 1, if I recall correctly, but I could be wrong.
you might be right, but even then, like he'll likely win the fight, but it's not going to be an efficient way to kill
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
AP. It's AP. No, it's only his BS attack that
Mm,
I shot,
yeah,
so
it's
it's
just
just
AP. Yeah.
APCC. Yeah. So yeah, usually he previously used to be able to slap people with D charges, which was pretty good.
Mm.
But look, you can still walk into the CC with somebody, and then if they choose to CC, you can just three shotgun shells into them.
Yeah, I mean, I
Or
think
if
it's
they choose
probably
to shoot, you
more.
can CC.
Yeah, it's probably more relevant in the AP rifle profile because I think if you got the
Mm.
boarding shotgun, you just shotgun someone in the head 3 times and they probably die.
Yeah, it depends. You can fork them, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
In a way, you can kind of do a fork. As you walk into CC, if they choose to CC, you're probably better off doing three shots on 18s rather than one CC on 24s. If they choose to shoot, then you might want to CC because you might bring their odds down. It really depends. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure.
I mean, look, most you send in most Kazak spetsnaz parachutists without a plan for them to live. But I think a good
Yes.
plan for them to live is at the end of their attack spree, get them in CC with a tag or a heavy infantry, take that one
Yeah.
CC fight, and then just leave them there.
Yeah, that's very valid. But their biggest purpose for me has been classifieds.
Mm.
They do so many classifieds. They're
Yeah.
really, really good classified units, and you can also help them with other units by throwing smoke on the sides of the table to make it
Mm.
easy for them to walk in. And then yeah, so you have a dog warrior running up the flank, throws smoke. The other water pool, the Kazak walks in, nice and safe, and off he goes on his
On his
spree.
merry way.
So there's a yeah, exactly right. Or he just starts. Yeah, so there's a bit of synergy there as well, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think both profiles are really great. And honestly, like
Mhm.
hats off to CB for the design of the spetsnaz. I really like it when they have, a top stat line that does a thing, and then the different profiles really bring out different flavors from that top stat line.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure.
All right, well, from that absolute cinema onto the Kazakh
Yeah,
doctor.
yeah. So yeah, we're not getting through these units very quickly, but I think this is
Yeah,
a bit more straightforward. You get a doctor; he can be part of the Kazakh link, and he counts as a line Kazakh.
yeah, he's
Useful.
fine. He's whatever. Yeah, I mean, same with the 112.
Yep,
Again, you don't have
absolutely.
cubes. You're a linkable
Mhm.
doctor. You're fine. Whatever.
Yep, absolutely.
Onto the Dozer, who's I think's a bit more
Oh
interesting.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
he's got some really nice profiles. I really gravitate towards the Blitzen profile
hmm
and the armed turret, but I haven't tried just the rifle armed turret. How do you feel about that?
I haven't really played the turret
Mm,
because, like I said, I played one 2 day event with TAK, and then I've put them down just because I was always planning to change armies at the end of CanCon, which is our big national event,
mm,
and that came about just after N5, and so I used TAK. So I haven't used Arm Turret, but basically I think the fact that the Dozer can go into the Line Kazakh link, I think the
mm,
deployable cover is pretty interesting because you can bring the deployable cover up the field if you choose to put if you choose to kit out the link team in a way where it's pushed up the table, and if you have
mm.
a vet Kazakh in that link team, you can have them benefit from the deployable cover, which is pretty cool because the vet Kazakh all of a sudden has armor 10 or something
Yeah,
in cover with mimetism, which is it's cute. It's not like something you
yeah,
it's a sometimes food basically,
yeah.
but the Dozer is yeah, I think he's just really good. I think we didn't get to the robots of the faction later on. I
Mm,
think engineers are pretty important for attack, and I think he's very good. And he has a deactivator, which is just
yeah,
great in
yeah.
this edition.
Well, yeah, can you tell us a bit more about the deactivator and why you think it's jumped so much in value?
Um, Repeaters are annoying. Deployables are annoying, and the deactivator not needing line of sight anymore
Mm,
is pretty good. And you can use smoke. So the Armadillos with deactivators are really good because they can throw smoke, walk near a turret, turn it off without having to do the whole fight, having to fight it,
yeah, really great.
which is yeah pretty useful.
Yeah, no, deactivators have gone hugely up in stocks. But yeah,
Yeah,
I really like the Blitzen. He can be pure in that team. If your
yes,
primary and secondary gunfighter go down, he's great
yeah.
to just stick up on turn 2 or turn 3, make someone's life a bit more difficult. He's got a lot of use cases for him. I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, it depends how you build TAK.
Mm,
You can run into trouble dealing with big thing or with tags in TAK. If you don't build your list with that AP HMG vet Kazak or the AP Spitfires and such, it can get a little bit tricky to deal with tags
yeah.
or heavy armor in general.
All right. The 112 motorized, we kind of touched on it before. You're
Yep.
you're reaching for dynamos a lot more than the 112s, is the
Yeah,
takeaway. Funny note,
absolutely.
one of the only motorcycles to not be impetuous and keep cover. So
Oh,
that's
I
yeah,
didn't
so
realize
that's
that.
that's a funny note, but again, you don't have cubes, so a doctor isn't a huge value to you, and
No.
it's just not as cool.
But it does give you a doctor. It does give you a mobile doctor. So if you're running the Frontoviks, maybe
Yeah,
it's a little bit more useful. But
yeah. I mean, look, I would,
because
yeah, I wouldn't
yeah,
fault you for taking it.
mm,
I put in like the sure, okay, bin, but
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
All right, the goat, Colonel Yevgeny Veronin,
Yeah.
Cossack fat ass core.
Yeah.
So this guy's
Yeah,
had,
he's
yeah, this guy's had a decent amount of like kind of shake up to his profiles. He's picked up both combat instinct and sixth sense. Uh, kind
oh
of
no,
as that D.
he had those he
Yeah,
had Sixth Sense
yeah. So
previously.
they've de-nested that, but he's still got the
Yes.
same function. Um, yeah. No. What do you think about the
Yeah, he's good. I've used him at different times.
Mm,
Having counterintelligence is pretty powerful
mm,
with Alpha Strike units like the Dog Warriors, the Spetsnaz, the Dynamos.
mm.
Uh, it's good. It helps going first. Having the second reserve and having the additional order is really good for leveraging those sniper profiles and those units that help you outrange your opponent.
Mm.
So having that to deploy well, I think it really helps.
Yeah.
Um,
The command
and
token's really
plus one,
nice as well.
yeah, really nice, especially in this new edition where everything wants your commando. The speedballs, the converting of irregulars, the
Mm.
docking of opponents, the going suppression fire. If you're going second, the coordinator orders. Like it's yeah, he's really great. And I think he's just he adds a lot to the faction without having to do too much. He adds
Yeah.
a lot to the list without having to do a lot himself
Mm.
and be able to move units from group to group. I know you know you can't. You got to pay for it because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the next level
Yeah.
of
Strategos.
Strategos. Yeah, Strategos one. But nonetheless, having two reserves very good, especially if you're running snipers, because you can get those favorable deployments against favorable
Yeah.
units or
And I think,
favorable snipers.
yeah, one of the big drawbacks of Veronin was just, like I mentioned, that really fat base. But TAC's gotten a lot better at
Yes.
defending its deployment zone in this edition. Uh, so I
Yeah, the
think,
fat base does come into it. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
but I think you're better at defending your deployment zone in N5 with some of the new units. But my
Hmm.
big hot take is that Veronin's really good just even as a non-lieutenant. He's
Yep.
he's good to send up with an aggressive kind of Haris or core of some kind. Even being in a core, he can be that first stopgap where guard and a shotgun is going to be pretty hard for your
Yeah.
opponent to push past. So I think don't overlook the non-lieutenant profiles, especially that he's unfortunately he lost the veteran keyword, which would have been really nice just to put up like
Yeah.
yeah like a Frontovik or vet Kazak just duoed with Verona would have been really
Hmm.
cool and probably exactly why they took it away. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, but yeah, don't sleep on the non-lieutenant profile.
Fully agree. He gives you a really uncomfortable choice. In he does that fork, the same thing as
Mm,
Andromeda does, where you're either getting hit by T2 shotgun or you're getting hit by close combat where you can't actually respond. It's just
yeah,
it's pretty gross. So you declare CC. So if you move in to 8 inches, they declare CC. You shoot them with a shotgun, their CC attack fails.
yeah,
If they choose to shoot, you CC, you stack the odds. It's if you can get him off the field, he definitely has play. the big base is awkward. The big base, considering all the other big bases you want to bring in TAK, makes it hard to deploy.
Mm.
Counterintelligence certainly helps. Strategic certainly helps that. But yeah, he's even without moving up the board as a lieutenant profile, he is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, also just if he's gonna link a burst to whip 14 flash pulse, that's actually really nice.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at
Yeah,
all.
not bad at all. Yeah.
All right. Next up, the war drivers, who were sort of the necessary evil in the faction.
Yes.
For highly classified. Do you think they have any purpose past that?
Maybe. I used to take the war driver. I used to take the war driver Evo in the previous
Yeah.
version.
Oh, it's such a shame you lost the Evo, man.
There's a good reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But, yeah, there's a very good reason for it. But nonetheless, I think you probably could. It's mainly for highly classified and countermeasures. But challenge yourself. Find it. You can take it and see if you can find another way to use it against maybe tags, because you've got enough smoke in the faction to be able to deliver it without it having to win the gunfights. So yeah, there might be some play there, but I haven't tested it.
Yeah, no, I think they're dog water. I'm not even going to give you room for that.
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, war corps. They've
Never
picked up. Yeah, I was about to say they picked up specialist, but I think TAK's one of the factions that's very unique in how it's set up and doesn't really want to take war corps, because you've already got you've got irregular specialists, you've got arrows. The war corps just isn't a tool you need.
No, absolutely not. No, I never take war corps like in any of my lists.
Yeah.
It's
take an Ermin Dino instead.
Not starter for me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Next up, one of the new units, the Barsuk Territorial Defense Regiment, who seem to me as a harbinger of the end of U.S. Ariadna, because they're basically grunts.
They are. They're very good grunts. Effectively,
yeah.
They're awesome.
So there's a long list of profiles that basically boil down to heavy flamethrower, light shotgun, marksman, and then a weird thunderbolt. And you're either taking a forward deployment, a camo, or an FTO. But where's the main? What profiles here are the juice that you want to squeeze?
The decoy. The decoy heavy flamethrower for 11 points. It just gives you ability to build a list in a way where you have a way to insulate your deployment zone without having to deploy too many troops on arrow. And I think you reach for that decoy Barsuk profile when you're not taking too much camo, when you're leaning more into the Frontoviks, Kazak build, because you don't want to. Those pieces are too fragile and too expensive to put up on arrow. So you want to have things that impede alpha strikes, which are the Barsuks, which are really really good. The heavy flamethrower FTO and the heavy flamethrower decoy are the only ones I've really used. I'm sure the others might have some play, but I can't really comment.
Yeah, I mean, I think comparing the Barsuk to the conductor FTO does the Barsuk a little dirty, because I think you're for 3 less points. Sure, it's only a chain rifle, but you're picking up the shock mines as well. I think it would be hard for me to be upsold on the Barsuk, especially if I'm making them the duo bonus foundation of a link. I quite like the non-camoed heavy flamer. I don't think you'd take more than one, but I think there's probably a spot on every table where just wedging that could be a real pain for someone.
Yeah, the immunity, shock, and armor 3 is why you would take it over the conductor.
Yeah.
Because if your link team has the doctor, you can get these guys back in the fight, which is pretty cool. Because having to deal with a flamethrower is ugly, and then your opponent getting back in the fight, not it's kind of annoying.
Yeah. No, I do think. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're just taking one conductor, I think I'd consider upgrading it to the Barsuk.
Hmm.
And yeah, the armor 3, like I mean, like we said, they're basically grunts. Um,
Yep.
armor 3 is nice.
They're 4-2 movement as well, so keep that
Which
in mind.
fucking sucks.
Yeah, it absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
People who've come to the game in this edition, where mobility's been upped,
Mm.
they've
Yeah.
never had to experience 4-2 and how shit it is. But yeah,
Yeah. No, it's
but
a
yeah, it is a limitation.
incredibly shit. But yeah, great unit.
But it's
Great
but they're
unit.
really good in also 16-inch deployment missions
Mm. Yeah, very true.
because they're where they want to be, even with the slow movement.
Yeah. All right. Next up, another unit, kind of like the spetsnaz. That's a bit divisive. We've got the tank hunter.
Hmm.
Whole
Yeah.
list, whole slew of profiles here. They've gone down a little bit in points, but not a massive amount.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, look, a lot of people kind of cite the same sort of bad luck issues with the tank hunter. The tank hunter's, maybe slightly more tilted towards an ARO presence. What are your thoughts on the
Yep.
tank hunter?
I think they're good. The lieutenant profile is useful sometimes
Yeah, in
when you're
decap.
playing.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Chain of command, that's the one profile I would not reach for personally. I just go to the facility almost always. Um, in terms of the profiles, the AP HMG, let's just compare them to the spetsnaz. So I
Mm.
think for me, in list building, the spetsnaz is the bully piece where he goes after light troops, rems, and medium infantry. The HMG is very much whilst the AP HMG tank hunter is much more designed to go after heavy infantry and tags,
Mm.
particularly tags. I think the name says it all.
Yeah.
It's it's the tank hunter is your solution to tags. Um, Coming out of camo, hitting it with 4 dice, AP HMG, and stacking a whole bunch of mods on a tag is a pretty useful way to deal with it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic unit. I think the AP heavy machine gun weirdly gets overlooked, and I don't really understand how that happens. But I could even
Yeah,
I could
it is
even very much see you taking a list with both a Spetsnaz HMG and a Tank Hunter
exactly.
HMG, and you've solved your redundancy issue, and you're covering all your bases really well. I think yeah, I think the Tank Hunter AP HMG is weirdly slept on, and I don't really understand why.
Yeah, it is strange. It is strange. It's really, really useful because exactly what you said. If you have one of each, you've got a good gunfighter for 90% of your fights, which is Spetsnaz. Even if he goes down, the AP HMG tank hunter probably do those fights quite well as well.
Mm,
But then you've also got a way to deal with big armor through the AP HMG. So having both in the list is pretty useful.
mm.
But I guess the reason it kind of gets left on, if I was to guess, would be the fact that people just pay a little bit more and get the vet Kazak AP HMG,
Yeah, that's
which
true.
has
Yeah.
a little bit easier time to use.
And I think, the Tank Hunter, in the zeitgeist, it does have an identity as more of an ARO piece. So I can see there kind of being some
Yeah,
mental friction in taking an active Tank Hunter.
tank hunter.
But yeah, I
Hmm.
think there's definitely a space for them. Yes, you can get a Vet Kazakh. They do slightly different things, but there's definitely a place for the
Yeah,
Tank Hunter.
absolutely. Yeah, I think this one stacks more
Mm,
mods against. So, for example, you engage a tag with a vet Kazakh, that you're stacking cover mimetism. If
mm.
you engage tag with a tank hunter, you're stacking surprise, cover, mimetism. So yeah,
All right. And
I
what do you
think
what do you think about
yeah,
the big kind of the what the Tank Hunters are really known for, the portable autocannon and the missile launcher?
the portable autocannon is the profile you take where you want to hunt tags. So if you know that have a tag, that's the one you take. Because what it does over the missile launcher is it gives you ability to use an active because it does have
Mm,
burst 2 and reactive in a pinch.
mm.
Right, so you can kind of do both roles. Whilst the missile launcher can only do one role, which is act in reactive. I don't think you want to be shooting with burst 1 missile launcher
Yeah. Mm.
in active turn. So that's the difference there for me. I think the portable autocannon is very much just for tags, tag hunting. The other thing I'll say is both of them are really useful for coordinator orders.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
both packing very, very dangerous weapons, and they're most likely not going to be the prime target. And having a 60% chance to hit somebody with a portable autocannon or a missile launcher is pretty compelling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the portable autocannon, it can be a bit fragile and bad luck prone. And I think, like you said, you really only want to be using it against very heavy targets, and they don't always present themselves in every match.
No, that's
So
the
I
thing.
yeah, so I think that's where the portable autocannon kind of misses out. But
Yep.
yeah, like you said, I like the missile launcher quite a bit. I think even just having the presence of the tank hunters in the faction makes some of those
Yes,
decoys, scary. And
absolutely.
depending on how many decoys you've got going on, you can choose to reduce how many you actually put out to make it look like, oh, there's actually might be something here instead of just a wave of bullshit. And the tank
Uh huh.
hunters, just their presence is a big part of your shell game. But yeah, I like the missile launcher quite a bit.
Yeah, you summarized it perfectly well. The fact that they're in the faction has a big influence on the rest of your camouflage markers, like a big influence. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's why they added that new profile, the forward deploying profile with the Panzerfaust, because all of a sudden anything in the midfield is no longer a Strelok or a Scout alone. It could very well be um, Panzerfaust, Tank Hunter,
Mm.
or Beasthunter.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
it forces the enemy to respect those midfield camouflage markers or forward deployed camouflage markers a little bit more.
And this is a call to every TAC player. Every TAC player must play the Tank Hunter for Deployment +8 every list for the next 3 months. To get it into the zeitgeist, and then you can go back to normal. But every
Exactly right.
every tank hunter, millions must tank hunt.
It's for the greater good of all TAC players. And once
Yeah,
people, have been panzerfausted by a midfield camouflage marker enough, they'll start respecting the rest of your decoys.
yeah. So small metas, you know what to do.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
All right. You
Um,
mentioned
yeah, have it.
Big Vasily before
Yes.
as the character tank hunter. So he picks up BS-13, gets a decoy, and then pretty big changes in terms of the loadouts here. Do you want to walk us through?
Um, yeah. So you. Oh, sorry. What changes in what sense? The load. I think the
Yeah.
loadouts are the same, aren't they?
Oh no,
Or
sorry. I
are
mean, I
you
mean
talking
different
from
from
14?
compared to tank hunters is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what you meant. Yeah, absolutely. So Vasily, first of all, brings BS-13 on a camouflage marker. I think he's the only camouflage
Jinkies.
marker with BS-13.
Yeah.
He also brings Dogged, so he brings the redundancy, which you just don't get, a form of redundancy rather,
Hmm.
you just don't get with anything other than a vet Kazak. So that's special. T2, gross, really powerful. He is got the teacher marksman rifle where you can push up the table and actually gunfight with the camouflage state, so you can pick and choose your fights.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the Strelok, but the difference between him and the Strelok is he deploys in your deployment zone, so you kind of have to work him up the table. So, but he does have the BS-13, so you don't have to flank people as much. You probably still should, and he's also got the Dogged, so he can get unlucky, depending.
Yeah. And the Acolyte Canon is it's also a pretty good ARO thing as
Yes,
well.
yeah,
It's glue is the great equalizer.
it
Um.
is. Glue and a flash pulse are the great equalizers. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
So it might look like a weird inclusion, but it's actually not something to be overlooked.
Nope. And with Dogged, if you do use them on ARO, if you're forced to, right, it's like a handbrake. It's like you don't really want to be using ARO, but say you're ahead in the game and you want to really slow your opponent down, you're willing to throw him away. You pull the handbrake, you reveal him on ARO, and he's got Dogged and armor 3. So there has been
Yeah.
times where he's cost somebody 4 orders to get rid of.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember you and I played a game where you popped Vasily. I got him to dog it and then realized I kind of couldn't push him over the line. And I just sort of had to end, that unit's position where it was because I was like, well, I could sink another million billion orders into it or I could just go do something else. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and basically no one wants to lose a fight against T2 other than like nobody. Yeah, no, even the tag doesn't want to lose a fight against
yeah,
T2 because at the end of the day, it's just such it's such a high, I guess, a critical failure state. It's just it's nasty.
Mm. And are you taking the lieutenant profile ever, or is it really just the chain of command?
I've taken both. He's a really good piece for as a lieutenant, as a chain of command.
Mm.
He's just a great he's just a great option in terms of bolstering your I guess security as the your lieutenant security because I think the vet Kazak has whip 14. He has whip
Mm.
14, and so does Voronin. So if
And
you take
the
Voronin,
tank
it's
hunter
obvious
as
you're
well.
lieutenant.
Yeah.
The tank hunter as well. Yes. So there's a shell game to be played there, where if you take a vet Kazak and you're with 14, and you've got a million camera markers, they're not necessarily going to know that you've got Vasily as your
Mm.
lieutenant. They might think the vet Kazak. They might go for it.
Yeah. No. Very cool. Speaking of the devil, the vet
Oh,
Kazak,
they're so
man, so
they're so.
so good. They got a lot of really nice changes. The first
Mhm.
one being just move 6-2.
Oh,
Uh, really good. Warhorse is better than ever. The Sixth Sense splits. That they've kept both, which is really nice. But yeah, 6-2 movement. What a world we live in when Ariadna can get 6-2 movement.
dude, yeah, that's changed this profile so much. It's really helpful.
Mm.
He's just a stellar profile. He's really well tuned. He's not hackable either. Armor 4 BTS is his real downside. I had a game at CanCon where he got absolutely shredded by Tai Sheng's breaker combi. He just got
Oh yeah,
deleted.
yeah.
Yeah, that was brutal. But nonetheless, yeah, he's a fantastic profile. You're paying like you look at the jump between every profile and the HMG.
Mm.
It is big points you're paying, so you
Yeah.
want to, yeah,
Big points, big results. Go big or go home.
yeah, exactly. Basically, right? You also get a nice discount if he's your lieutenant with
Yeah.
the one SWC
Mm.
on the AP HMG, which is useful. Um,
And he's a
yeah,
good
what's
solo
it to say?
LT just to run around with that lieutenant order. Uh,
hmm
and yeah, take some kind of chain of command. But yeah, I mean, like you said with Vasily, that BS13 with that mimetism, that's really pushing the upper end of what you can
Of
be shooting with if you're not, trying to
yep,
play that unfair game. I mean,
yep.
which you should be. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he's got two wounds effectively. He's got he can take a hit. The redundancy. That's the biggest thing. He's got redundancy in the sense he can lose a fight and take
yeah.
a wound.
I mean, if they gave this guy a
Um,
cube, solved faction. Simple as.
yeah, genuinely, because you
Yeah.
can't afford to repair him. When he goes to no wounding cap, you can't afford to repair him
No.
because
Yeah.
there's a 35% chance he's going to die.
Mm.
The
Yeah. I mean,
one thing
yeah.
you can do is with the speedballs, he's a really good target for speedballs.
Yes.
Like a
Yes.
really good target for
Mm.
speedballs. Um, and obviously, look at the way the between mimetism, combat sense, and sixth sense, he is a potentially very good on suppression fire,
Mm.
but do, it's very situational, and you got to play the faction long enough, and know the scenarios, and understand the game state well enough to just when you decide to do that with that piece.
Yeah.
It's a very much sometimes food.
Yeah. I mean, in the category of sometimes food, also the vet Kazakh paramedics and FOs. Uh, on the one hand, I could see people be very polarized about them as either very bad or very good, but I think they're in the sometimes food category. Running a duo of vet Kazakhs with a T2 rifle, paramedic or FO. Uh,
FO every time.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I think so. I think that's probably correct. Um,
Because burst two flash pulse with
Whip
mimetism
14. Yeah.
cover with 14, it's pretty bloody good. Um, in my mind, at the very least, I think that's the one you go. Paramedic
Mm.
is not really useful because you're not healing anyone.
Yeah.
There's like
Yeah.
maybe you got some antipodes, like you walk past some dead antipodes, you might get them up, but you're really not healing anyone in TAC. TAC's just I really in my time playing them, I very rarely I try. Like I always had the ability to have paramedics and
Mm.
doctors. I always had them on the list, but it was very. I never relied on it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think. you can run a vet Kazak duo really well, where you've got that T2
Mm.
rifle, light flamethrower, heavy pistol
Hmm.
that can, once you sort of deliver yourself to the midfield. I mean, a burst 4 T2 rifle, burst 3 heavy pistol, that's just going to tear
It's
shit up. Like, it's
yes,
big. And,
yeah,
kind of like you
easily.
said before, they give T2 in burst 2 quite a bit. And there's a
Yep.
reason for that. So when you bump that up to burst 3.5, like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have the Streloks T2 rifle do two wins to Maggie because he
mm,
shot in the back out of cover,
mm.
and he won the fight. And yeah, just boom, two wins off like an M8 something. Yeah, it feels gross
Yeah.
when it comes off.
All right. And then on to the Fat Nick,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
who's picked up TAK aware. Pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Picked up,
Very, very nice.
yeah, no, I mean, and he's gone down a little bit in points as well. Um,
The heavy rocket launcher went down a lot. He went down
mm,
7 points.
yeah, yeah, no, that's pretty huge. And I know you're pretty
Yeah.
excited about getting the Ratnik back on the table. Uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, walk us through the Ratnik?
He came to CanCon. He's been in my list towards the tail end of N4 and start of N5. He's
Mm,
been fantastic. Um, think of him as like a the big Russian tank which draws all the fire. That's how you think of him.
mm,
And that he allows other troops to do something. The Spitfire, AP Spitfire profile with the Burst 1 Panzerfaust, that's your redundant fire base if you want to build them that way. If you want to build your
mm,
list that way, he's a redundant fire base. He's got the attack aware now. He's got a strong weapon. He can get through armor. He can take a hit. Armor 6. He's really great. And he's also got deactivator, which is really useful because he is hackable.
mm,
So keep that in mind. If he is hackable, so you want to run an Ermendino near him. One, the Ermendino can help him get into his range plans by throwing the smoke. Two, the Ermendino can be on hand should somebody go after him with a hacker.
mm.
So that's something to keep in mind. The AP Spitfire is the profile I've used least. I think actually I used it against you, and remember I failed that
Yeah,
fight against your rocket launcher and it just went straight to death.
yeah,
You know,
that was tragic.
it was just hilarious. But
Yeah.
anyway, but the AP Spitfire is the one that you build as a redundant firebase, if that's what you want in
Mm.
your list. Whilst my preference is the heavy rocket launcher as the lead of a coordinator order.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I use
yeah.
it for.
I mean, I think they're two profiles that serve very different purposes. I think that heavy rocket
Absolutely.
launcher, it is sticking around your deployment zone. It's taking fire. Where the
Yep.
AP Spitfire, it's one of the few, if you don't want to run a vet Kazak duo, it's one of the few very durable pieces you can put up to that midfield line. But I think the cost disparity is pretty huge now, which does
It's
steer me
massive.
more towards the heavy rocket launcher. I mean, I wish you could get some kind of bonus on it cheaper because the
Mm.
special die with the Panzerfaust and Flammenspiel +1 burst would bump that up to plus 2.5 or 3, however you want to say it, and that's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
really
yeah.
attractive. But
It is
I think the
incredible.
Spitfire is just a little awkward, a little too expensive, where the heavy rocket launcher is actually really nicely priced.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. Like I said, I think the Spitfire can definitely be made to work, but
Oh,
it's
for sure.
about building a list around it. The
Hmm.
heavy rocket launcher for me, I really like to units that enable other units, and I think the heavy rocket launcher really enables units in the faction like scouts, Vistrals, Kruyars, Basilis, tank hunters, etc. Because when you lead when he leads a coordinated order, your opponent is faced with an option of shooting the Dynamo submachine gun Panzerfaust,
Hmm.
the two burst heavy rockets that are coming, and then two camera markers that they don't know what they are. So they got to
Hmm.
pick one of those. 9 out of 10 times, they're picking the one thing that has burst 2, which is the Ratnik. And that's the thing that's got armor 6 or armor 9 in cover, so that's the one thing that can take a hit. And that's exactly what you want in attacks. You want uh, them to be shooting. You don't want to be losing pieces when you engage.
Hmm.
You want to be losing. You want to be getting hit by. You want the piece that can get hit to be getting hit.
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, that's a very good way to say it.
Yep.
Next up, the humble tractor mule. You loved these guys in N4. How are they looking in N5?
I actually like the Kuya as the next unit down, but the one thing I'll say about the tractables is if you want to play the guided flat spotlighting
For observing sort
game,
of,
so
yeah. Mm.
for reserving, sorry, game with your Streloks or your scouts, take the 9 point Katusha MRL because that's double action
Mm.
for 9 points, one SWC.
Yeah, no, very true. Well, we might move on then sorry, I apologize, your true love.
Yes, yes, yes. I love these guys. They're so good.
So you took them quite a bit in N4 where you had the Evo hacker, and a lot of people looked
Mm.
at you sideways, and then you proved them all wrong.
Well, I hope that's what I think. I think I've proved a couple of people wrong, but that's for them to decide. But yes, these guys are great. This
But
is a unique
yeah,
profile to TAC, and for good reason. So we've been going for so long that I've like run out of excitement a little bit. Like I'm fatiguing. So this unit excites me. So the good things about this unit, first of all, it gives you a guided, sure, whatever.
mm,
Gives you total reaction on a unit with armor 2 and 2 unconscious states. It gives you a really dangerous gun in the Ergun because it is
mm,
AP, shock, and template, so it takes away their
yeah.
cover
Oh, the template's
and half their
amazing.
armor. It is disgusting, and it's PS6, so it's quite strong.
Mm,
It is burst 3 as well. It has armor 2, um, and on top of all that, it drops a mine to add to your shell game with all your camouflage markers. So you can
mm,
drop a mine within 8 of it on a roof, put another decoy within 8 on a roof, and then have the spetsnaz HMG hiding somewhere nearby, and then it's just awkward for the opponent to. They kind of have to. They kind of want encouraged to respect both those things on the roof when they're most likely not even real, or
yeah.
make the one of the ones on the roof a tank hunter. And then, yeah, it's just awkward all around.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And, this was a really great piece, especially when you had that Evo hacker. Do you think it still
Yeah,
stands up without it?
yeah, absolutely. So being able to what this does is this gives you redundancy in TAC
Mm,
in the sense that you get 8 point engineers, and now you get units that can take a hit and be brought back reliably because they have remote presence, and you're not having to take units that you wouldn't otherwise take. For example, Ermininos, you'd take
hmm.
them anyway. So there's just a nice little synergy there, plus the mine layer. You can use it the way I just exampled, or you can just use it traditionally to help secure deployment zone. And in the active turn, there's no gun better than the Ergen in terms of damage potential, in terms of getting rid of heavy armor. Like
Yeah.
it
Mm.
is so strong, and they've changed the range bands. The range bands are
Oh.
0. Yeah, the range bands are -3 up to 8,
Hmm.
+3 between 8 and 24,
Oh, wow. That's a big
and
change.
yeah, and zeros from 24 to 40. So
That's
they can be
crazy.
part of coordinate. Yeah, they can be part of coordinated orders now really well
Mm.
as well. They're just fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just super units, and I can't rail on about these guys enough for TAC players. Use these guys, learn to use them. You won't regret it.
Yeah, and yeah, it might sound funny, but like seriously give it a shot. Like
Yep.
it's really cool. All right, you mentioned a little while ago that
Yes.
you've picked up your very first helper bot.
Oh man, what a game changer!
What do you see as the main applications for it? Like who are you giving this little helper to?
So you're giving it to an Ermendino, and the
Mm.
reason you're doing so is it gives you an 8 point Ermendino gives you 2 engineers effectively
Mm.
across your list, across your deployment. So you have a bit better reach with your Ermendinos without having to take 2 Ermendinos, because taking 2 Ermendinos is nice, but it is 2 irregular orders. Throw in
Mm.
a dog warrior, that's 3 irregular orders. You'll start to
Yeah.
get to that and then throw in Beasthunter, that's 4 irregular orders. So you're starting to hit that cap of how many irregular orders you kind of want in the
Yeah,
list.
for sure.
So having this really helps extend your engineer network, but also it helps you because you're likely deploying sometimes if with the Vistal being added to the list to the faction, you're likely deploying that somewhere on a roof, and you don't really want to have your Ermidine stuck babysitting a Vistal on a roof. So this is like a nice little piece to to I guess have to help you with the running of a Vistal.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And a question: if Normandino goes impetuous, does the little guy get to activate as well?
Well, I know. I think he gets to activate, but I don't think he gets to. Yeah, he's forced to do impetuous. But I did play an opponent Ivory, and they said that it does have to follow the impetuous rule, so it has to run up. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah, I
I
mean
don't
it's
care either
it's
way.
I mean that's cool as potential for free movement. If you need to
Yeah,
get somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
that's really cool actually. I think that's really cute. Or even just,
and it can also be
run.
used.
Yeah.
You can also use it to just blow up mines. It's nice to have something to just run through mines and just
Yeah, or get like
what other
an
people do
additional
with their
burst in
power
close
bombs.
combat as well. Like I think
Yeah,
there's actually lots of uses for this guy with an Armadillo that are pretty, some are
pretty
better
cool.
than others, but all pretty cool.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
All right, now
Yeah.
there's been big talk from young Val about the
Oh,
Vistral, who's one of the new units. Do you want to walk us through?
yeah, yeah. I think this is really, really good. Again, adding to one thing we haven't actually mentioned, and we're pretty
Mm,
late into it, but Hacks a very defensive faction,
yes.
and this just adds to the defensiveness of the faction. This is just a great unit. Like it is so strong. It's got really high damage because it gives SR -1. It's got some really scary weapons. It's got Sapper. It's got armor 2, 2 wounds, remote presence. This and the couriers give you a unit that has ability to be brought back up reliably.
Mm,
Something you don't get with your troops, but something you get with your robots. Having said all that, we should probably mention at this point that out of all the Ariadna factions, I think TAK are the most vulnerable to the info war actually. Because if
yeah.
you're running couriers, you're running Ratniks, you're running Vistrals, you are susceptible to hacking a little bit more than you would be with other Ariadna factions. It's still not a lot, but it is something to keep in mind. You do have lots of engineers. You've got deactivators everywhere, so you can get rid of those pesky
Pitchers,
pitchers and
repeaters.
repeaters.
Yeah.
But it is something to keep in mind. But yeah, going back to this unit, Sapper states fantastic.
Oh,
So you effectively have mimetism. You have cover anywhere you want. You've got weapons to outrange your opponent with the AP sniper, and you're good in almost every range band with both loadouts.
mm. And are you taking the Neurosynetics profile or the regular profile?
I genuinely think they all have play. I've taken
Mm.
the Neurosynetic Sniper to CanCon, the big event,
Hmm.
but I would play every single profile. I think every single profile has play. The portable autocannon, I think, is a really, really dangerous piece.
Mm.
Um, and I think you can set some traps, and it can also be used as part of a coordinated order. Like
Yeah,
it is a PS4 portable autocannon. It's
that's crazy.
gross. It's nuts. And it can always, and the biggest thing is it can always be repaired. The one thing to note is when you repair it, it comes back up without the sapper state.
Mm.
So it is interesting. It is an interesting little combination because once you repair it, it comes back, but it's no longer in sapper. So it's like, do you spend the water to put it back in sapper? Usually at that point in the game, you're kind of hurting for water, so you don't. But it's still a very, very good piece.
Yeah, I mean it's just so incredibly dangerous. And Infinity
Oh,
players, tend to be very risk averse. So I mean, I can see this being
yep.
a unit you put up, and they don't even try to engage it. It's just
Mhm.
because of the risk. And I think two structure, that's huge.
Yep. And then you just put a camera marker next to it.
Mm.
So then, if they want to engage it, they have to either engage both, or they have to waste their time slicing the pie on the camera marker. It's either something or nothing,
Mm.
and then engaging it. So and then it's got 2 wounds, mimetism, cover. It's just it's a
Yeah.
real. You can play it a way where you can really force opponents to sync orders.
Yeah, and like I mean, like you said, that structure too. Like nothing's ever going to get this off in one hit. Like the chances of that are just so incredibly low.
Very slim, very
Yeah.
slim, very slim.
All right. Well, we might move on to another one of your favorite pets, the Scouts,
Yeah, I
who
love
have
the
a
scout.
million
Yeah,
billion profiles.
yeah, you really do. Look, the reality with the scout is they're fighting against the Strelok. Generally
Hmm.
speaking, the Strelok wins out for most people. These guys are really useful for their ear mine.
Yeah.
The Ohotnik being able to do double duty. It has really good range bands
Hmm.
and it packs a dangerous punch. There's only 2 dice though. It is 2 dice, so it's tricky. So the profiles you're taking are the forward observer, the lieutenant for decap sometimes.
Hmm.
Because the other thing is with the scout, it's with 13, same as line Kazak, so it's easier to decoy
Yeah. Sure.
lieutenant. So for example, at CanCon, we played firefight. I baited my opponent, I think it was James Stallard actually,
Hmm.
into killing my two line Kazaks who looked like they had a lieutenant and decoy lieutenant.
Hmm.
Um, when in reality my scout was my lieutenant, so he wasted the turn going
Yeah.
after
No,
the
that's
lieutenant
sick.
and
Yeah.
failing to do so. The other thing is they have over the Streloks is they have infiltrate. They can infiltrate over infiltrate on 10s if you really want
Hmm.
to, but the fact with infiltration and mine layer, they can deploy a mine right on the halfway line, which is pretty good. Ear mines really strong.
Oh, so good.
Paramines, yeah, it's so good. Silenced pistols are not something to respect as well.
Hmm.
They're a new gun. I think people will come to learn to use them. Good against Norkias, good against certain units. Um, the Ford Observer gives you that flash pulse emergency handbrake, kind of like the Strelok, whilst also giving you a really forward deploying efficient specialist. D charges means that you can do lots of classifieds with forward deploying camo troop. Um, and finally, with the Ratnik, really good for being part of a coordinator order because the Ratnik is a very respectable gun.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think you are right though. There is a bit of a tension with the Streloks who you're competing against. But their toolkit's just different enough to where you can feel good taking them as a sometimes food. I think that EM
Yep.
mine is really valuable, especially if you come up against a more experienced player who thinks
Mm,
who looks at TAK, thinks they know what's going on, and then suddenly a shock mine or what they thought was a shock mine or a decoy can suddenly just ruin their
mm.
entire plan. So I think that EM mine really valuable to have, and also really valuable just to threaten as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if they put a tag in the midfield, they're not respecting you. You drop an EM mine and engage with the tank hunter APHMG.
Mm.
Like it's not a fun place to be for a tag, and it's a really useful way to get rid of heavy infantry, or have a tool another type of tool for to deal with heavy infantry tags.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, then on to you might be Pavel's
Pavel?
strongest warrior.
Yeah. Oh God, he's done so many things for me. Yeah, this is a crap profile. I don't care what anyone says. He is incredible.
I don't know,
Um,
dog. I think the frenzy changes have a really negative impact on him.
well, he's basically well, this is YouTube, isn't it? He's an unalive bomber.
Mm.
Um, basically, he's there to. He's a really good counter punch piece. So
mm.
if the opponent goes into the midfield, goes first, parks in the midfield in their forward zone where like between like 12, 16, and 20 or whatever.
Mm.
He's a really good piece to counterattack with and just scalpel out a certain piece that you want to. Camouflage, having smoke in the faction, having camouflage on his profile, and having berserk, you should be able to deliver him into striking range of CC.
Yeah, and that.
Whether
Yeah,
you only get one hit and one go at it, or two is completely, or multiple is completely dependent on you as a player. But he is a really good problem solving piece for big armor, big, heavy, scary things. he's really good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of profiles have suffered from the D-charge changes, but that AP plus T2CC weapon is still incredibly lethal.
Yeah, with martial arts,
You're
martial
getting
arts
that extra
three is
special die. So good.
yeah, yeah. In reality, if you use this guy, you you want to help him. You bring antipodes because the antipodes can get into base with almost anything in the game without your
Mm,
opponent, unless your opponent works really hard and thinks ahead to stop the antipodes. Um, in their turn, they're going to get to whatever you want, at least base contact, and then he should be able to get there and get that get a bonus die from the antipodes to really guarantee the kill.
yeah,
Um, it's it there is you can help him if you want, or the dog warrior. The dog warriors are telling you to just walk towards something and just most likely get into combat with it, and then come and help.
yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think he's dog shit or anything. I do think he's on the boutique side, and I do think you have to
Yeah,
actually
absolutely.
use skill, which might be scary for
Yes,
a few for a few people. Um,
yes.
but yeah, no, Pavel, he's definitely got a place. Definitely got some great uses.
Yeah, look, the one thing I'll say to
Mm,
attack players is um, use them as a counter-attack piece or an assassin piece for models that have either high mimetism or high armor. Yeah, he will help you.
mm. All right, next up, the Beasthunters Free Guild. The FGO lost Mine Layer, but he's still got that really nice 17-point heavy pistol profile. Shame it can't use that in CC anymore, though.
No, no. Yeah, so the Beast Hunter really adds to the faction because it's got super jump. So it's quick. It's a good attack piece because attack, like we said, it can be a little bit defensive. So
Mm,
it's a nice forward-thinking camouflage marker without having to sacrifice Pavel.
mm,
You've got the template. You've got the Panzerfaust. So then in ARO, so if they're going first, your millions of camo markers in the midfield for 17 points. For 15 points, they have to respect them a little bit more because one of them could be a Panzerfaust Beast Hunter shooting you in the side of the head. So it brings up the decoys as well, and yeah, he's just great. I think you've probably talked
yeah,
about him before in other videos.
yeah. But the Beast Hunter just it fits in really well in the TAC ecosystem.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's really really good. Uh,
I think that's yeah. I guess to narrow down to how he fits into TAC,
mm,
he helps the decoy camo game because he is better insulated
mm,
for you to use him, and he also poses. He makes the other camo markers pose a bigger threat because he has a Panzerfaust, and there could potentially be Panzerfaust under any other camo markers.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't. It's hard for me to imagine like TAC without Beast Hunters. Like it
Mm.
just seems so Stone Age. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
yeah,
Uh,
but yeah, Beast Hunters are amazing.
uh,
And onto one of your other really good irregular pieces, you got the
yeah. Oh,
Ermendino.
dude.
I mean, I, I look at this profile a lot, and I think like, what the fuck were they thinking, dude? Like, Fizz 14 is fucking cracked. It's got a good whip with whip 13. Like, 8 points. What is going on?
Yeah, like I don't think we need to say too much. Profile itself speaks for itself. It's fantastic. In terms of attack, it synergizes really well because it gives you smoke coverage
Mm,
of making you avoid fights if need be. It gives your chief specialists. It gives you ways to get up the table, and it also synergizes well with your Vistrals, your Couriers, and
mm.
I guess your Ratnik if you choose to run him.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many amazing applications for the Ermendino. You can put one in a list and be confident that it's going to be doing, something pretty impactful most games. If you show me a attack list that doesn't have an Ermendino, you're going to get a bit of an eyebrow raise, and I think you need a good reason not to take an Ermendino.
Agreed. Agreed. The time you'd be not taking them in is if you're maybe running two dog warriors and a
Mm.
beast hunter, and you're really pushing the irregular orders.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. But otherwise, take everything else away and just still like being an impetuous specialist. Like, oh,
Ah, with
there's just
smoke,
so much. There's just so much going on.
impetuous specialist with smoke. Like,
It's
dude,
crazy.
like he delivers himself. It's nuts.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the Antipode Assault Pack, who I don't know. They sort of feel a bit red-headed, maybe not as effective as they used to be.
Mm.
In Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the water has sort of risen around Antipodes as a unit in general. But you did mention before they're really good at locking units down.
Yeah. So the the antipodes are another like faction defining unit.
Hmm.
Um, they are really really good. I've never taken the antipodes and been like, oh, they're not useful.
Yeah.
Between their movement, their body blocking ability, their sensor, their close combat threat, the mental load on the opponent,
Hmm.
and their fact that you can lose them without losing orders, um, and their Fizz 15 just dodging for days, they're always really useful in some way or another.
Hmm.
Whether you run them with Pavel to give them that boost, whether you run them to win the camouflage game, whether you run them to pin down units, however you want to do it, they are always worth their points once you learn how to use them.
Hmm.
And like the way, I guess, if you think of it from a real world point of view, they're hunting dogs. That's what they are. Hunting dogs don't do the killing; they impede or immobilize the enemy.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
they with the super jump, they can get on the roof and get rid of your Morans, your camouflage specialist that the opponent pays for and tries have safe. They can body block, impersonation marker. They can do whatever you want, right? They can go after the enemy's puppet master. They've got camouflage. They can recamo.
Hmm.
They basically can't be stopped from getting to where they want to get to,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless the opponent really puts in a lot of effort and pre-planning. So yeah, fantastic, and they get attack awareness as well. So like,
Yeah. And
oh, amazing.
they're incredibly cheap. But I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of new players to TAC might see these guys and like want to use them as assassins, but I think
Mm,
that's not necessarily the right direction. I think you got to really open your mind to the possibilities of the antipodes.
yep. Yeah. Like the only thing they can assassinate is maybe a line troop who's like on the ragged edge of your deployment zone, or your
Mm.
opponent's deployment zone, unguarded. But even then, unless it's like a key piece, like maybe the one interventor they have in their whole list, and forgot Tunguska, I'm just using that as an
Yeah,
example. It's just my recent faction, right? So it's
examples
like
from
unless
guy
it's
who's only played against Tunguska.
yeah, yeah, it's what I'm playing Tunguska, so I'm seeing the weaknesses or the
Yeah.
vulnerabilities. So like unless it's like a line troop, they can do damage to tags. Like you can surround a tag and burst 3, CC 20, AP PS5 is actually not bad,
Mm.
but you're probably going to lose one on the way there. You'll probably only have two, so then all of a sudden it's not that great odds. But then the Beasthunter can come in, or the Pavel or whatever, they can
Mm.
come in. For example, against James Sallard, he put his Zeta on a roof because he thought it was going to be safe. They got to it, they went prone, and they just kept it engaged. And
Yeah.
his units would have to spend a lot of points to get up on that same roof to help in CC or shoot into that combat
Mm.
to get rid of them. So yeah, they're really they're hunting dogs. Best way
Yeah.
to put it.
And yeah, like you said, Takawar is really great to just inch them up over the game. 26 points is really reasonable.
They're really good against Invincible Army as well. So
Very
Invincible
true.
Army got those Gundun troops or whatever.
Mm.
They can discover them, and usually Invincible Army or have that Davying Lieutenant guy
Mm.
who's under camera marker. They can discover him pretty easily, and then if he's on a roof and he's unattended because they thought, oh, just no one ever killed this guy. They can get to him potentially.
Yeah, very true. All right. Well, speaking of hunting dogs, we've got the dog
Oh yeah.
warriors. who
Yeah,
are really, uh, one of your more durable units in the faction.
exactly. Yep. He can benefit from that paramedic, the amount of paramedics you use because he's got the Fizz 16, Fizz 14. So
Mm.
he is actually a good target for your paramedics and doctors.
Mm.
He's really been boosted by the super jump change. He's
Yeah, for
quick.
sure.
He doesn't have to transform to be quick and in your face.
Yeah.
His smoke coverage is so useful. His grenades when his spec fire grenades are legit.
Oh, yeah.
Like very legitimate. His close combat not something you rely on, but he can do the job. Again, the antipodes might give him an extra burst. All of a sudden,
Mm.
AP burst 2, burst 3, CC 23, very respectable. Um, chain rifle +1 burst with immunity, intel immunity, really good at clearing through light infantry troops and remotes and such. He's great.
Yeah, you used to really begrudge the dog face form before he transformed, and it would be a pretty
100%.
common tactic for some TAC players to try and get him injured intentionally, but that could,
Yep.
very much backfire and lead to some bad situations. But now that you've got that 6/6 super jump and, Fizz 14, really
Mm,
being, like we said before, in the upper echelon of reliability when it comes to, smoke grenades and spec firing
yep.
grenades, I think it's had a huge boost in usability and a pretty big drop in points.
Yep. In decap, he's one of the best things to kill their HVTs. Like
Yeah. Mm.
you just spec fire grenades on them. Go
Yeah.
for it. Like that, it's risk free.
The
Like you,
Ariadne guided, if you would.
yeah, exactly right. Like it doesn't matter if they put a mine near it, whatever they put near it, just spec fire grenade on it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Same as like going after their roof lurking specialist or their yeah. Yeah, he's really good. Just quickly, I just thought of something with the
Hmm.
antipode pack as well. The other thing you can do is they got Fizz 15. You can Kazak people as need be with antipode
Mm.
pack. So you can pick. So I've had games where I've picked up. Actually, I might have checked because they don't have impetuous. So I don't think there's anything
No.
stopping them
Yeah.
picking somebody up. So I've had a game where in highly classified I had to heal one of my own guys. So I had an antipode pick up my guy, run him back to my doctor just to
Mm.
get them classified.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So
Yeah.
they really have a lot of ways that they can be useful, but it's not. It takes you just gotta play. Sometimes the profile, like you just gotta play it, put it on the table,
Well, yeah,
see what happens. Uh,
God forbid a forum grinder actually play the game, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you go.
All right.
So
And lucky last, Carmen Jones, mercenary biker.
mm, you might be a better place to talk about him. I've never used her.
Yeah,
She's very good.
I don't fucking know what's wrong with tag players, dude. They're all allergic to putting Carmen on the table for some reason, and I really don't know
Just so
why.
many big, it's just so many big bases, so many big bases that she's the first. I'm sure she's good. I'm sure she would work, and she'd probably work with like that Frontoviks build where you're not leaning into too many bases, too many camera markers,
Yeah.
fighting for like those optimal spots.
Well, yeah. Basically, I think in TAC if you can get really far by setting up your impetuouses right and making sure
Mm,
you map out where your impetuouses go, where your smoke is thrown, what can happen. Because essentially, if you set things up right, Carmen can get that impetuous order and just get that 12 inches up the table, and is a really great alpha striking piece or someone to be up there throwing more smoke. Batard's really great with sensor. We've already talked about how good
yep.
sensor is. But, Carmen is competing. First off, she's competing with the Dynamo bikes, but Carmen, I'd say, is more outwardly aggressive than
Mm,
the bikes are. Where if you want kind of the more tech from the bikes, you go more towards the bikes. Carmen and Batard, they're really great aggressive scalpel pieces.
yeah, that's a
But
good
you
point.
then compare that to something like the Ermendino or the Dog Warrior, where what you're getting with Carmen over an Ermendino is the speed, but of course, you're leaving behind all the tech the Ermendino has. It's a very different role. And then I think the Dog
Mm,
Warrior is probably the more equivalent comparison. And really, for me, it's a costing thing. And I think Carmen and Batard, just being that peripheral relationship, has a bit more capacity, for certain things than the Dog Warriors do. But, no shade on the Dog Warriors, just different roles. But I think Carmen and Batard are very much a turn one, doing something big, or just using that impetuous each turn, slowly moving up, getting some board space.
You're absolutely right. It does compete with the Dog Warrior, the Ermedino, but it also competes with the Kruyas, the Vistals, the Voronins with the bases, with the base
Mm,
base,
mm,
and the antipodes even as well. So yeah, it competes in different ways. Like against the Dynamos, you're absolutely right. It's much more outwardly aggressive than the submachine gun Panzerfaust.
mm.
Um, but it's also fighting for that same board space in deployment, so that's what makes it tricky.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
having such easy access to Strategos, I think you really can get Carmen to do some really good stuff if you run her with Veronin, because you really get to place her perfectly.
Mm, yeah, and yeah, there's Carmen's really good at throwing out. I guess what Carmen's really good at, even though she's pretty similar to a Dog War in terms of speed and capability, she's really good at throwing out forks in a way that the Dog
Mm.
Warrior can't necessarily do, and she
Yep.
still has that
Yep.
dogged. So I do
Yeah.
view her as a really, really, a turn one alpha striking piece, or just moving
Nice.
her up to threaten that alpha striking piece. But yeah, I understand it in the TAK ecosystem. She has a lot of pressure from a lot of different directions. But I am surprised to literally never see her in any TAK list. I think
Yeah.
I think she deserves better
Yeah.
than that, man. Yeah.
Yeah. She does. She does absolutely.
Also,
Yeah.
just
There
the
you go.
flexibility with smoke grenades or smoke grenade launcher. Yes, you're only
Yes.
BS11, but if you got a free impetuous and some, or you just
Perfect.
need to make something happen, she's a good unit who can, put smoke wherever she wants to, essentially.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right, now Val, I believe you have a list for us.
Yeah, so funnily enough, this is called Cookie Cutter, and it is co-designed by Douglas. But it basically just gives you a tack list that is just. Wait a second, is this the right one? Sorry, I'm just going to quickly. Yeah, no, it is the right one. Yeah, sorry, it gives you a tack list with basically most of this good stuff,
Hmm.
with a little bit of stuff that's a bit hard to use. So your main gunfighters are the Dynamo, Epic Spitfire, and the Spetsnaz, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but you also have the Frontoviks multi sniper should you need it.
Mm.
Um, you don't necessarily need the Frontoviks multi sniper in ARO because you got the Vistal. The only
Mm.
time you would use the Frontoviks sniper in ARO is if they've got smoke and you want to slow them down. You've got Dog Warriors, you've got Pavel, you've got a Scout EM Mine Layer, you've got the Barsuks to not deploy if you want to clog up that deployment zone with Flamers, and
Mm.
you've got the Ergen with the Ermedino, and you got the Vistal with the Ermedino as well. So, and you got the turret with the Dozer, and you got a decoy lieutenant. You really got all the bases covered.
Yeah, I really like this list as a way to, start exploring a faction like TAC, where you get a really
Mm.
nice slice of what TAC can bring you. You can drop and add in different units to take it in different directions and explore that way pretty easily. One thing I like the group split. I like the order split quite a bit. I think that's a really nice aspect of the list.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things with TAC though is which we haven't mentioned right until now, so if anyone's still with us, um, when you're designing the list, if you're in the camo shell game, you got to be conscious of what groups the camo markers are in,
Mm, mm,
because that can give away a lot. So in this list, for example, you're deploying the scout, the mine, and Pavel in midfield. So it insulates Pavel, maybe not as much as I would usually like, because I usually like to maybe have a Strelok in there to insulate them,
mm,
so they don't know who to go after. But yeah, so you've got three mines and three camouflage in the midfield, so it's no obvious targets. And then in your deployment zone, you've got the mine layer, the decoy, and the spetsnaz, so you can place a little bit of shell game there. And in terms of Barsuks, you get explore camo markers. Obviously, none of them mim, all of them mim 0, but
Yeah.
still something for the opponent to think about before as they approach.
Yeah. I mean, you can threaten like a conductor. Maybe you could change this list to have like one Barsuk, one conductor,
Yeah.
Flammen and then don't put out the decoy and put out the conductor kind of acting as the decoy. That'd be pretty funny. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
you can. Decoy is optional, so you
mm,
don't have to use
yeah, yeah,
the decoys.
mm,
You can just deploy one, and all of a sudden it looks like conductor.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden there's games to be played. There's little shell games, but that's the shell game side of it is for the players to explore as they get deeper and more comfortable with the faction, and then
mm,
because it's a whole different layer to the faction, all of a sudden there's a whole mental load that you probably don't need when you just start the game, when you just start the faction.
yeah, yeah. Well, Val,
And
thank
you've
you
got
for
the two
joining us.
dynamos. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh
Yeah.
no, 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 that's
The
okay.
last, the last thing I'll say about the list is you've got the two dynamos. So you've got heaps of mine dispensers. You've got the
mm,
baggage in the TM courier to reload, and you've got the fast specialist and fast gunfighter. So yeah,
yeah. I mean,
really well balanced list, to be honest.
you got some great use for baggage here with the dynamos, with the dozer as well to reload that rifle, not
Mm-hmm.
rifle, the arm turret.
Turrets,
Yeah, lots of really good uses for baggage.
absolutely.
All right, Val. Well, thank you so much for coming on for the TAC extravaganza. It's
No,
been wonderful.
thank you, Dante. No, absolute pleasure to talk TAC. Love the faction. Highly encourage people to play it.
Mm.
And yeah, hopefully this has been helpful to people. And yeah, I don't know how long this episode's been, but I think we went for a little while.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, look, the way from what YouTube tells me, people either watch 5 seconds or watch the whole thing. So
Yeah, okay.
we'll see if
Is that what you,
yeah, we'll
is
see
that
if
what
they
you
can
should put?
thug through this one.
Okay, well, hopefully, yeah, people get
Yeah.
to the end. Because I think we've covered some good things. I think,
Oh,
yeah,
for
I think
sure.
we've highlighted the beauties in TAC.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, if you've got a new player looking to get into Ariadna, I think TAC probably is the pick for that as well, where they can start with a more simple build. But this is also a really
Mm,
nice place for an established player who wants to jump in and
yeah,
get a lot of the flavor you can get in TAC.
yep, absolutely.
All right, well, thanks again, Val, and thank you all at home for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. Let's hop over to the Army Builder app and take a look.
Yep.
Fuck.